All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great Sunday and a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to try to go for about 2 hours. I am a little under the weather here. I'm feeling mostly better, but no guarantees I'll go the whole 2 hours. I may cut it off a little bit short. We'll just have to play it by ear and see how it goes. But like all the other live streams, though, we're going to give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's always the join buttons there across the video page, channel page, and also a link in the description. But anyway, I see we already have Shane generously gifting 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Shane. Happy to see a bunch of people able to get those, some familiar faces and some new ones as well. And yeah, thank you again so much, Shane, for starting us off tonight with some generosity there. I really appreciate it. Let me see. So Harsha has the first question of the night here. He says, how come there are so many more sport bikes and super bikes available on the market compared to sports cars? Even though bikes in the US are a much smaller market here in the US, I see a lot of enthusiast-focused bikes with insane power and cornering abilities. Yeah, I think, the thing about bikes is that there's a lot less that goes into them. Obviously, it's still a lot of engineering. There's still a lot of, tooling up and experimenting with different parts and dialing things in. But, a bike is much less complicated than a car. Way less systems to worry about, way less safety standards. You don't have to do, any of the safety testing, any of the calibrations for, safety tech and all these things that take some time to dial in. Also with motorcycles, it's very evolutionary. No one's really reinvented the wheel as far as motorcycles goes. It's very much, okay, well, let's hot rod the motor a little bit. Maybe they come out with a new motor design, but I feel like that's very rare to even do something like that. I think the most like kind of bold and daring stuff we're seeing is, some of these experimentations with electric bikes. But other than that, I mean, it's all, like how much has a Hayabusa truly changed in the past 20 years? I mean, I'm sure they have made some really nice improvements, but it's always evolutionary and, very much, the same. And so a lot of that stuff's already paid off. So it's almost like a forerunner or something where you just keep churning them out if people keep building them. And there's really not a whole lot of cost to keep that rolling as long as people continue to buy. So you can keep a lot of that old stuff around. And especially since motorcycles are basically all enthusiasts, at least here, in the US, very few people just use them as basic transportation like other parts of the world. So it's all just enthusiast focused. So you have a very clear mission, you have a very clear target of what you need to hit and what you need to do. And a lot of those people, like a lot of enthusiasts, don't like a whole lot of change. They're happy with, whatever power level they're used to there. And you have your traditional, stages and all that. And it's just, I think, a much simpler market, much simpler, for the whole process. So I think that's why there's so many. And so even if they only sell, 500 of each every year or something, it doesn't matter because there's not a whole lot that goes into that. Production lines are much easier and simpler. Just all those types of things I think are what really help. And also it's, really helpful that there's, not really a whole lot of tariffs and other things on them. So for example, the Japanese can bring in whatever they want and toy around and experiment with things like the Groms. That was like kind of a newer thing that was, really popular here in the past 10 years or whatever. And, you have none of those barriers. You don't have to worry about crash testing, none of these things. So it makes it a much more open, free kind of market as well. So I think those are all the things that kind of go into, the awesome opportunities and options you have out there as far as bikes go. But I'm not an expert. I honestly don't know half of the things that are even out there, I'm sure, in the motorcycle community. But I think that's probably, most of the reason there. But great question to start us off. Thanks so much, Harsha, and hope you're doing well. I see we have also Grand Admiral Thrawn, and yeah, once again, Shane, Anthony, Trucking Car Guy, Danny, Cars, Dave, thanks so much, B. Mitchell, everyone for stopping by. And B. Mitchell, thanks so much. He says, dang it, I went to toss some ice for my scotch into my Matt Maran glass and cracked. Haven't had that happen in a while. I guess it's back to mason jars until I get another one. Sorry to hear that it cracked. You might want to, because if you bought it through Fourth Wall, try and see if you can get a refund. That's not something that I handle because I don't oversee the production of any of that stuff, but definitely reach out to them because, I mean, how long have you had that glass? Probably not very long. It should be better quality than that. If Honestly, I'm yeah, disappointed to hear that because if the quality's not good and they're cracking in what 6 months, less than a year or whatever, not a good quality glass. Mine has been holding up. I mean, I don't use mine a ton, but mine's been totally good. But definitely see if you can get a refund and get a replacement that way. But I also just saw you just placed another order tonight, so thank you so much for your generous order there on the merch site there. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy those new glasses when they come. But yeah, definitely try and get a replacement from Fourth Wall because that should not be acceptable to have a glass crack in less than a year unless you're throwing it against the wall because you're tired of my rants. But anyway, thanks so much, B. Mitchell, for stopping by, Miss 705. A bunch of others here, Raphael, Vishal. Thanks so much, everyone. And let me see here. Other questions. I see Danny says, my rare spot was a 7th gen Civic Hybrid. Also, my aunt out in Washington State with the dying Gen 1 Leaf got a new EV and she replaced with a brand new Leaf, 250 miles of range, a lot better than the 70 miles in the Gen 1. That's awesome. Yeah, well, I hope it treats her well. And yeah, that's exciting. I will have some some potential new EV news to share as well with you guys here. Those of you who remember, I was kind of going back and forth by trying to find an insanely cheap EV to lease just as a little backup car because I got rid of the Bullet last year, and that was something that I was pretty confident I could probably cover my ability of not having a car and only having the Mach-E and sharing that. I thought that'd be kind of a fine solution. But there are times I've noticed in the past 9 months or so now that the Bullet's been gone where I do have to take an Uber somewhere, primarily to the airport, or where I don't love taking the Mach-E and leaving my wife and daughter like without a car in kind of an emergency scenario. I'd like them having the Mach-E always there ready to go for them. So I have decided to get myself a backup car. It is insanely cheap. It is not a sports car. It's not a Bullet replacement, aside from the fact that it's going to occupy that space in the garage. But it's not. It's literally just a backup car that's going to sit for months on end, and occasionally will be used. Whenever I need to run to the airport, whenever I need to. Just have a week or two where sometimes I go a couple of weeks without having a press car. And so it'll fill those gaps to get me to the places I need to go. And because the EV leases are just insanely cheap right now, I can't really justify spending a bunch of money on some fun car. I still don't have that financial bandwidth. That's why I got rid of the Bullet, because I can't afford, some fancy fun car, but I will have some transportation. And in my opinion, it will still be fun transportation. Not as fun as the Bullet, obviously, but it will be something. And so, yeah, I'll be signing the papers on that tomorrow, finalize the deal here over the past few days, and we'll be taking delivery hopefully at some point this week. So stay on the lookout. Those of you in the live stream here, you get the early scoop on that. Probably won't post the video this coming week. It just depends on when I actually take delivery, but most likely either this coming weekend or the following week, I'll be sharing what I decided to get and the insane deal. I'm really proud of myself. I've been kind of working on this for over a month now, trying to hunt down a deal, and the amount of dealers that I've called and the strings that I've tried to pull and all the back and forth. It's like, my God, working with car dealerships is such a pain. And I had forgotten about that. But I was able to finally find a good dealership that was willing to play ball at the price that I needed to get to, which is an insanely low price. It's going to be pretty wild, especially here in PA where we have no EV incentives really. The fact that I got it as cheap as I did, yeah, and I just wanted to again capitalize on that tax credit for the final gasp of that before it goes away here any day now, probably. We'll see how that all plays out, but I wanted to capitalize on that while I could. So I don't think there's any way I'm ever going to get a car this cheap ever again in the history of cars. So that's why I wanted to strike while I could here, because I didn't want to miss the opportunity and miss the boat here. So stay tuned for that. But let me see. Truck and Car Guy, thanks for being a member for 22 months now. He says, just a PSA, if anyone buys a new Kona N-Line or N with the wing, I repeat, do not run it through an automatic car wash. Man, sounds like you're talking from experience there. Hopefully you didn't have that happen to you, but you would think that Hyundai would have checked that and made sure, or at least issued a warning or a disclaimer about that. So that sucks. Hopefully Yeah, I don't know if Hyundai would help you out or if the car wash company, I guess they'd probably just say you're on your own. They always assume no risk, but that sucks. Yeah, fill us in if you want with more details, but that is no fun. I didn't think. I mean, I had the N line for a week. I didn't take it through an automatic car wash, but I didn't think the wing stuck out that much to like cause an issue. That's pretty crazy. 'Cause, I mean, has anyone else with like a race car or some kind of crazy big wing? Have you guys ever had a car wash like break your wing? I feel like they should be sturdier than that. That's crazy. But sorry to hear that, shredding car guy. Um, and let me see here. Um, Other questions though. I see everyone saying good evening. Grand Admiral says no rare spots this week. Truck has to go into the shop for a rough idle. Well, hopefully they get it figured out for you there. Um, and speaking of rare spots, I saw today a Juke Nismo. I very rarely see those around here, and that was kind of a fun thing. It's one of the ones I've had people request a review of a Juke Nismo. I've never had a chance to review one though, but seems like it was always like one of those fun, quirky little cars that has a very niche appeal, especially because everyone considered that generation Juke to be hideous. I didn't love the styling either, but it's cool they made a Nismo version, and I wish Nissan would do more of that now these days. But that was kind of my fun spot. I feel like there was one other little thing that I saw too today. I can't remember what it was. But anyway, curious if any of you guys spotted anything cool out there in the wintry wherever you live. Speaking of wintry, though, I see Mr. 705 says, "Hey, Matt from snowy Ontario, Canada." I saw a bunch of Ontario plates today, actually. I was just on a little bit of a highway drive today, and a bunch of people from Ontario coming through PA for some reason. But hope you're staying warm up there, and thanks for stopping by. And let me see. B. Mitchell says it's not like I need ice in my drink in St. Paul either. Valid points. Yeah, I hope you're staying warm too. And let me see. Michael Wetshave says, "Hello, Cars, brother Michael here. Thanks for stopping by. Glad both of you enjoy the channel. It's probably fun to maybe watch videos together and join these live streams together, and a fun excuse to hang out with siblings. That's awesome." And Raphael says, "Hello, all. This week's sighting, red first gen NSX. I love that car." Yeah, that's a special car. I'm guessing you live somewhere warmer, or someone's very brave to be driving a first gen NSX around out in the snow there. But that's awesome. Very good spot. Vishal says, "Hey, Matt, went to get takeout earlier and saw a very clean Kia Amani. Don't remember the last time I saw one of those." Yeah, those are rare. That was a fun little idea, like make a Kia that looks like an old school Jag. And I don't know, at least around here, I saw a good amount of them back, obviously when they were newer. It's kind of funny how a lot of those types of things just really do evaporate off the roads way faster, which I guess tells you everything you need to know about some of those older Kias. But yeah, it's funny. You don't really see those very often. I think also depreciation just gets them, even if they do hold up. It's just that, while someone might wreck a Civic or an Accord or something, and the insurance company won't total it because it holds its value, it's a lower threshold for stuff like that. And someone dings it and then they just total it. And maybe there's some of that going on too. But yeah, great spot there, Michelle. And Truck and Car Guy says it's been an interesting last few days. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Let me see. Harsha says Donald Trump's personal F-430 is going to an auction. Definitely not going to be political. Right. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what that goes for, because I have to think that that's got to be one of the last cars that he actually ever owned. Because, I mean, he probably never. I thought I heard that he didn't even have a license, or if he did, he like let it expire or something. I don't think he's driven an actual vehicle on the roads aside from that garbage truck or whatever he drove back in the fall for a photo op. But I don't think he's actually driven anything in a long time, if ever. It's kind of shocking he ever owned a car, considering he's probably been chauffeured around almost his entire life. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what that goes for. And B. Mitchell said his oddball car sighting of the week was a 77 Ford LTD2 as a winter beater. Someone needs to make better choices. Yeah, I feel like that's just, because none of those things were rust proofed very well. So like, I feel like even if you picked one up that was in decent shape, after a few winters, especially up where you guys are at, maybe you don't have as much salt as we have here in PA, but like cars just get destroyed with salt, and with something like that, that would just, turn to dust in probably 5 years around here. Getting abused the way we have stuff get abused around here. But yeah, that's kind of sad to see something like that used as a winter beater. Crazy. And let me see here. I see. Michael says, Matt, wish I had 208 million views. Starstruck. Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember when I crossed the 200 million view mark. I think it was sometime last year, but that was a fun milestone to hit. And it's one of the things I don't really pay attention to that number very often, but there's one day I was like looking on my analytics where I'm like, oh wow, like it was over 200 million. It's kind of wild. It's been a long road. That's really, I mean, it hasn't happened overnight for me. For me, that's been, just a matter of, what did I do? I think I've done almost 3,000 videos or something. It took a long time to get there, but it's a fun accomplishment for sure. Thanks for even noticing that. Harsha says Art and Senna's personal NSX is also going to auction. It's probably going to go for a ton of money. Oh yeah, that one. I mean, yeah, just sitting in that seat and the amazing driving that NSX is probably, the drives that thing has gone on, it must be, pretty wild. So yeah, that one will be fun to see too. And Dylan says, saw the new Volkswagen bus while out grocery shopping. It had both a pair of fuzzy dice and peace stickers on it. Quite perfect, I say. Perfect. That is perfect. I'm so happy to see that people are keeping the bus kind of, fun hippie kind of vibe going with those. That is the way they should be customized, in my opinion, as well. And I'm glad to see someone also buying one. There's starting to be a few of them, piling up on the lot at the dealer, which makes me think that they're not selling super hotly. Obviously, it is a very outgoing vehicle, and it's not going to be for everyone. But yeah, that's that's awesome. I hope they do well with those. I kind of am skeptical of it. I think a lot of people, seeing how EVs depreciate and seeing how EVs get these discounts, I'm guessing there's going to be less early adopters and a lot of people that'll be like, you know what, I am really excited for this, but I know that these are going to drop. Unless you're leasing them, in that case, I think it qualifies still for the credit, as long as your income's not too much. But maybe some people jumping on them before that ends, but otherwise I think a lot of people are just going to wait on the sidelines until they have some discounts and stuff. But let me see. Bird Dog says, I was in England last week. That's awesome. I desperately want to go back to England. I was there in 2018 and loved it. Hope you had a good time. He says, have you discussed the return of the Prelude? Yeah, I covered it in weekly updates whenever it first was revealed, and then also whenever we got more info on it here a few months ago. I'm hoping it's better than the sum of its parts, because it sounds like it's going to be the regular off-the-shelf Honda hybrid system with like manual shifting that they've added in. It's better than nothing. Again, it's a two-door car in 2025 that in and of itself deserves to be praised, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to be very exciting. But I'd love to be proven wrong. We'll wait and see, and hopefully we get that sooner rather than later this year. And Michael says, but wait, Matt, aren't you like totally worried about airport security with leaving a car there? No, not. Even the Bullet would sit at the airport for, sometimes almost a week at a time. At least our airport parking, it's all, gated and all secure and all that. So, I try and find a spot away from other cars if I can, but usually the past couple of years, the airport parking lots have been so packed that I don't even have that luxury. So I always just kind of was hoping for the best. And at least you don't have as much traffic with airport parking. Typically, you might have, sometimes I'll be gone for 3 or 4 days and the cars that I park next to are still there when I come back. So it's like, there's not like you're getting door dings like you would if you parked, in the middle of a Walmart parking lot or something. But yeah, I have no worries with airport parking. And this year we're getting a new airport here in Pittsburgh. So in the fall, that'll open up and it's all going to be covered garage parking, at least for most of it. So then you'll be out of the elements and should be really nice. But let me see. Ali on base says leaf leases are so cheap. Yeah, some parts of the country, they are stupid cheap. That's another great one to jump on. I will say that I didn't get a leaf. I'll eliminate that one from the guessing. But yeah, that's another great value if you do have some good incentives in your state for those. B. Mitchell says, so it's you with a 77 LTD. Definitely not. I wish I could get a classic car like that. Someday I do want to have a classic, but for now, the backup car had to be something 100% reliable and something that, again, I'm driving to the airport at 4 in the morning and I don't want to have to worry about, getting to the airport. So it's something new for sure with the EV and the leases there. But Cara says, congrats on getting the new EV at a great deal. I'm looking forward to seeing your upcoming videos about it. I'm sure it'll help a lot of others become informed about it too. Yeah, I think that's kind of one of the other things I'm excited to raise awareness about. I mean, there has been a lot of, people that are seeing the insane, lease deals you're seeing in like California and Colorado and even like New York, I think has a few, more incentives for EVs and stuff. So there are some pretty good deals, but there's not a whole lot in PA. So, but again, I want to show people that there are still deals to be had. It's just a matter of, again, finding the right dealer, like everything else. Same people that complained about, their favorite sports car or whatever that's hot and new is marked up. I'm like, go out of state. And I will say I had to go out of state. I went to Kentucky. I didn't actually physically travel to Kentucky, but I made a deal with a dealer in Kentucky to get this thing because all the dealers in PA sucked. There was one dealer that I almost came to a deal on in PA, but then they started acting shady and like going back and forth. But it's every single time I go to, buy a car, I start in PA. It's easier because then the car is inspected in PA already, and the car, that's easy to transfer plates and do all that type of stuff. But every PA dealer just is so bad around here, at least in this side of PA. So I'm always going out of state. The Mach-E, we went to Ohio. The Bullet was Ohio. The Mustang before that was Chicago. The Mustang before that was actually in PA, but it was way far south in Uniontown, which is almost right on the line of like Maryland and West Virginia there. And then the Mustang before that was also Ohio for the EcoBoost. BRZ was here in Pittsburgh at least, and Mini was in Pittsburgh, but all the more recent ones had to go out of state. And that's what I tell people, get out of your comfort zone. Go on a road trip. If that's where the deals are, it's worth taking a day out of your schedule, going on a fun little road trip, and it's a fun way to bring your car home. So with the one in Kentucky, since it's an EV, to minimize my charge stops, especially here in the middle of winter, thankfully the dealer agreed to deliver it up to 300 miles. They're further than 300 miles from me, but they're going to bring it the first 300. I'm going to meet them. I'm going to do a one-way rental, meet up with them at the Enterprise office basically, and meet the tow truck driver there that's just going to be on a flatbed, and they're going to dump it in the middle of a parking lot, and I'll take the keys and then I'll do the rest of the drive home. Obviously not ideal, but it saves me a bunch of extra charge stops, and is going to be a little bit easier there. But I'm just like, I want to get the car from you guys because no one else around here is decent. And so I was like, well, let's find a way to make it work. And so that's what we're going to do. So I'll be doing that here at some point, probably this week. That'll be a fun little adventure. And I will be vlogging it. I always like vlogging my EV road trips. Like this one, I think I'm only going to need one charge stop. But I always like showing real world experiences because a lot of people see, the worst case scenarios, or they see sometimes, people have flawless experiences. And I always want to document every time and show you guys, here's what it really was like for me in the middle of winter in an EV. And one that doesn't have a huge amount of range either, and getting it home and what that was like. So I'll be doing a little vlog, kind of like I did with the Mach-E when we did our beach trip back in 2022 with that. So yeah, stay tuned for that little bonus video here at some point later this month. But I appreciate the congrats to the cars. And Dan says, I know what it is. Well, thanks for not spoiling it here for the others. But let me see. Decepticon, thanks for stopping by. Vishal says, saw my first ID Buzz on the road yesterday too. Such a cool looking thing. I'm so glad you guys are seeing them. I haven't seen any on the road, so this makes me excited. And this is great news. You guys are really getting me excited here tonight that there's actual ID Buzzes on the road. He says, also got done watching your video on it. What did your daughter think of it? She really liked it. Yeah. For her, she loves minivans because it means she can open the doors herself. But she always likes the ones with TVs, and they usually don't actually put TVs in the press cars very much anymore. The Pacifica plug-in hybrid I had last summer that had TVs in it, but they weren't connected to the Wi-Fi and the hotspot wasn't working, so we weren't able to actually watch TV on that was a disappointment. But the Honda Odyssey that I had, and I just posted a video of this week, That one had the TVs and had the hotspot working. So we were able to put on some Paw Patrol for her, and she was having a blast watching that while we had that thing. So that's probably takes the cake over the ID Buzz just for that simple fact. But she thought it was really fun. We had a really good time, in that vehicle. That was actually right around Christmas time too. So that was really fun to be in a red Buzz. Right, like I think it was the week before Christmas we had that. That was fun. And sorry, Raphael, I just saw your super chat pop up. So thank you so much for the super chat. He says, my girlfriend bought a Tesla Model 3. I have my Can't Wait TRD. She's electric, I'm gas, and we talk cars over breakfast. There's room for all of us. I love that. Kudos. Yeah, that's absolutely so true. And there's, I mean, you see all the comments online, about just, if you have an electric car, you're not an enthusiast or this, that, and the other. There's if you are into cars, you are an enthusiast. It doesn't matter what you like. You could like, something with three wheels. It doesn't matter. It's a car. I guess technically that might be classified as a motorcycle, but you get the point. And that's great. And to have, a girlfriend that you can talk cars with over breakfast, you found a good one. I think a lot of car guys would be very jealous of that dynamic. So that's awesome. And hope she enjoys her Model 3 there. I mean, they are a phenomenal bargain right now. That's for sure. Because there's a lot of people getting rid of them. So, I mean, if you want to scoop up a used Model 3 or even a new one, they're struggling with sales right now. So that is definitely a bargain. If that's something, it doesn't bother you. That is definitely honestly, arguably one of the best bargains in the used car world. Just because, man, I see so many posts of people. And I think someone actually just said that, like, there's dealers that are now turning down Model 3 trade-ins because, like, they're just piling up because Hertz dumped, I don't know how many thousands of them that Hertz dumped, last year, and they're still trying to even work through those. It's definitely a buyer's market for that car. So I hope she got a great deal on it. He says hers is faster, but mine sounds better, and we're both happy. Great dynamic. And that great recognition of some people like sound, some people like speed, some people like both, and there's nothing wrong with any preference. That's awesome. And let me see here. Where were we? And thanks so much again, Raphael, for the super chat. Let me see. Trenton Car Guy says, ran a Kona N line at work through our on-site car wash, broke the wing in half right at the brake light and pulled it off the body. Man, that's nuts. Well, at least it wasn't yours. That's good. I feel bad for whoever's that was, though. That sucks. Hopefully, they get it taken care of there without it costing them too much. And I see Raphael says he's never taken his TRD through the wash because I'm worried about that with the wing. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I never had anything with a huge wing, so I've never been worried about that. Then again, though, I've never actually gone through a touch car wash with any of my cars in a long time. It's probably been at least a decade since I've been through an actual touch car wash. Actually, I take that back. I was in one. I took the Chrysler Pacifica press car that I had through one back in the summer, but that was my first time going through in a long time. Let me see here. Trenton Car Guy says, also someone at my apartment apparently has been breaking into my Lancer. That sucks. Man, that is wild. Do they keep breaking in? Is it like a non-intrusive way of getting in that like isn't causing damage that then you have to go get it fixed? That's crazy. Car break-ins are absolutely still a thing. I feel bad for anyone that has to deal with street parking or lot parking or any of that stuff, or even just in your driveway. I mean, the amount of Instagram reels I've seen of people getting their like Charger Hellcats stolen out of their driveways and stuff is just nuts. I am very thankful for a garage. I know that's a very nice luxury that not a lot of people can have for whatever reason. But that definitely is one thing that eases my stress most of the time. But sometimes I have a nice press car in the driveway, and I still get nervous about that because sometimes I can't put it in the garage or whatever. And I'm like, man, this thing's got some really expensive wheels on it, or this thing's, a really sweet car that probably attracts eyeballs, good and bad. And yeah, that sucks. I hope you figure that out and get to the bottom of that, and hopefully it stops soon. But sorry to hear that, truck and car guy. That definitely sounds like, yeah, you've had a stressful week here. Sorry to hear that. Man. And Dan says, not a race car, but when we bought my wife's 2018 Mazda 3, new back in the day, and on day 2, a touchless car wash blew the driver's side mirror cap off. Man, a touchless one. That is quite the impressive power washer on that thing. That's crazy. Especially a Mazda 3. Like, that's so small. Usually I'd worry about that on like a bigger car that's maybe wider and gets closer to those, jets. But that is wild, man. Sounds like that Mazda just did not have those mirror caps screwed on very well. Cara says, haven't heard of any wild stories about rear wings and car washes, but our friends had a car wash rip off part of their rear bumper because it had a gap after the garage door had snagged it. Man, that's crazy. And I just saw there was some other car that just like the bumper like randomly just like fell off super easily. I can't remember where I saw that. I'll think of it later, but yeah, bumpers are, you gotta be careful. Oh, who was it? Someone showed me. Oh, that's what it was. My brother-in-law. So his coworker had a BMW 3. Well, he has a BMW 3 Series, and I guess he had it wrecked once before, and he put like a knockoff aftermarket but OEM looking front bumper on it because he wanted to save some money at the body shop versus, going for an OEM replacement or whatever. And he was just backing out of his friend's driveway. It's a little bit steep, and the whole front bumper just like pulled right off. Like, I don't know if it's the clips aren't as strong or what it is, but like whole front bumper just came right off. So that's the types of things you don't want to cheap out on. And let me see. So am I right too? Thank you so much for another super chat here tonight. He says, no jokes tonight, no funny egos, but just a message to say it's okay to check on your mental health, especially for lonely car guys in the basement. I agree. And hope you're doing okay too. Thanks so much for stopping by, and hope this is a fun little hangout here with other car guys to make it a little less lonely. But I know, especially, I know you're in Northern California, so you probably still have some fun, car meets and stuff. But I know around here for a lot of car guys, it's really tough because it's just, brutal weather and no car shows and just misery from, basically December until March. And I know a lot of people, they really, if that's their whole hobby and that's the one thing they're doing, you can only detail your car in the garage so many times before you just kind of, miss getting to take it out and, hanging out with others, at those car meets. And I had some car friends back in the day that, yeah, it was definitely a struggle over the winter months for sure. But hope we're close to, spring here, just a little bit more, to go. A few more weeks here. I know Pakistani Phil said we'd have 6 more weeks of winter, but silly groundhog. I don't think he's right. Hopefully it comes sooner rather than later, and we can all get back to enjoying our cars, those of us that are currently restrained by snow. But thanks so much too. Hope you're doing well otherwise. And let me see other questions here. Vic says, same thing for the Cavaliers and Sunfires and Grand Ams. Used to see them everywhere, and now it's rare. That's true. Yeah, they have been. I actually saw a Grand Am, I think like a week or two ago, and I was like, wow, like a Grand Am. It was fun to see. But yeah, Cavaliers, Sunfires, all that stuff. I do see a few of them around, but you're right. That's another one of those things that, yeah, they just were everywhere, and all of a sudden they just vanished. I think also, especially some of the older ones of those were casualties of cash for clunkers, even back in, the late 2000s there when that was going on. A lot of those, 80s and 90s ones just got scrapped, which is really a shame. I think, that's one of the things, I'm sure I don't know everything about cash for clunkers and the merits of it. I wasn't really paying that close of attention back then, but, it's a shame because I think that does probably, make that whole generation of vehicles a lot more rare. Anything that qualified for that, a huge amount of those got off the road. And, it just means that there's going to be less to pick from in the collector car market in the future, which is why I think you're seeing a lot of these 80s and 90s vehicles really skyrocket already. Because, obviously some of the ones are just rare anyway, like, Type R's and stuff. But, the other more ordinary stuff that's really holding its value and, starting to appreciate is just because so many of those things just got, scrapped. And it's, kind of a shame in hindsight. I understand the motive behind it, but a lot of these little 4-cylinder things were getting good fuel economy. It's not like it really helped, with any of that a whole lot. Definitely got some gas guzzlers off the road, but I wish it was maybe a little more targeted to, the bigger, and less desirable gas guzzlers versus, some of the smaller fuel efficient stuff. But anyway, I won't go into that whole side tangent. But YDMF2 says, hope you got a 500E. Yeah, we will see. That is one of the low priced ones, and that is one of the ones that I was shopping. So you'll have to see here in the next week or two whether I went for that. I was also shopping some Hyundais, some of the Kias, shopping. I even was checking out some Solterras, Prologue. There's the Chevy stuff that's very cheap as well. And the BZ4X, some places have decent deals on those too. So there's a lot of really good stuff, honestly, that's pretty aggressively priced right now because most of those are fairly unpopular. And, again, that's kind of why I went to the middle of this, the country with Kentucky, being close to that Midwest kind of area, because, a lot of the people around there are not excited about EVs, and, they get dumped on, with these EVs from the manufacturers. And then they're like, all right, I got to get rid of this thing. How do I get rid of it? No one around here wants it. And, and this is why they're willing to bend over backwards and make these crazy deals to get them off their lots. Versus if you're in California, or you're in, some of these other places that are more EV friendly, it's probably a lot easier to get rid of this stuff. So that's why I think even Pittsburgh, is actually pretty friendly to EVs from a, we have a decent amount of chargers around here. I see a lot of EVs, especially in my area. Cause I live in an area where there's, typically some newer, slightly more expensive cars, pretty often. So a little more conducive to EV ownership anyway. But, so that's why the dealers around here are like, oh, we'll find someone to, come around and pay, our insanely high prices for these things eventually. And they don't have any pressure versus, dealers in the middle of the country are terrified and they want to just get these things off their lot. So that's a little bit of my method here for anyone that if you are shopping, go to a very red state. If you want an EV, that is going to be the way to get the best deal, because they all hate them. They all want to get rid of them ASAP. Obviously, I'm speaking in stereotypes, but generally speaking, they want to get them off the lot. They don't like them, and so that's really where you're going to get the best deals, because they're willing to just take a loss because they just think they're all turds anyway, and it's just they'd rather just be done with it. But anyway, let me see. Jeff also says, hey, Matt, did you hear the new head of EPA, Lee Zeldin, is supposed to be redoing CAFE standards and possibly fees like gas guzzler tax? Second one being a rumor at this point. So redoing, so you mean like he's going to continue the gas guzzler tax? I hadn't heard anything aside from the stuff I mentioned in the weekly update, I think like 2 weeks ago. Where they're just basically gonna disincentivize the EVs and focus the infrastructure improvements on areas with high birth rates and high marriage rates. But I hadn't heard anything about the CAFE, so that's interesting. I'll have to look into that. Thanks for the heads up on that. I probably won't talk about it though in the weekly update unless it is, until there's an actual plan that's accepted and actually law, because anytime I talk about this political stuff, it gets me a bunch of grief. So I usually try and avoid it until it's absolutely like something I must talk about, because it will affect people. But until it's actually affecting people, and car enthusiasts, I try and avoid that topic in the weekly update, because people do not like my thoughts on that. Vishal says, glad to see in North Carolina where salt doesn't destroy cars. Are glad to live in North Carolina where salt doesn't destroy cars. So you'll see some of those oddball cars occasionally. That's awesome. Cartoon says Trump's Diablo went for $500,000 not too long ago. Okay, I'm curious. I don't know how much a regular Diablo goes for these days. I feel like Diablos might still go for, several $100,000. I know that's kind of one of the less loved Lamborghinis. But I feel like that's kind of regular Diablo money from my recollection. But again, I don't follow that market very closely, but that's interesting. Jazz says, "What do you think of someone trying to buy a Senator Melendez's convicted 2019 C300 convertible? Probably feds have possessed it." I mean, the only thing I worry about any kind of like repossessed car or any car that might have potentially lived, an iffy life, is just has maintenance been done? Very normal kind of question, but that's always my concern with especially repoed cars. Anything that has a shady history is, if you aren't making payments or if you are, doing all these sketchy deals and trying to, maximize, your money or whatever the case is, sometimes those are the types of people that, either need to or have or just don't want to spend the money on maintenance, especially for stuff like, Mercedes, where it's, $200 for an oil change and all this crap, so, yeah, that'd be my only concern with that. um, and Carr says, speaking of rear wings, I apparently saw a classic Saab 900 with a giant rear wing last week. Definitely didn't expect that. Nice. Those are so fun. I love those Saabs. They're so, so cool. And yeah, even back in college, I had a friend that had her dad handed her down. It was the Saab. I think it was the 9000. It was like the hatchback with the still like the square little headlights. It was before the rounded like seal beam headlights. I can't remember if it was, I think it was a 9000. But that was I actually did a little bit of driving in that, and it was really fun with the manual and the cool car. Um, and let me see. Harsha says, if the Volkswagen bus goes down in value due to depreciation, would you be considering getting one to replace your Mach-E if the price is right? No, mainly because we don't need that much space. I mean, maybe if my daughter does a sport that requires a giant vehicle or something, where we're hauling huge amounts of gear, that would only really be the only reason I would, but I would be opposed to it just because it won't fit in our garage. Our garage has a really low ceiling, and the Buzz is just really tall. I mean, even like body on frame SUVs don't fit in our garage. Any of that like large SUV stuff doesn't fit. I think the biggest thing I ever got in there, I mean, the minivans fit, but like I think like Kia EV9 just barely fits. And there's a few others that were like really tight squeezes, but once you get to the body on frame stuff, it's just none of them fit in there. So that's the biggest problem. I would have, with the Buzz, especially being electric, if I wanted to own one of those, I'd have to put an outlet outside and have an outdoor weather ready charger and charge it in the driveway, which I don't love that idea anyway. So that's the biggest problem. I don't envision us moving anytime soon or ever. We bought in 2021 and our mortgage, our interest rate, 2.5%. You're never going to see that again. So I am married to this house, I think, forever. But yeah, so probably no Buzz in our future, unfortunately. I wish it would fit. If it would fit, I would probably talk myself into the extra size, even though I don't need it. And if they were, stupid cheap, it would be probably one of my top picks personally. I don't know if Beth could do it though. She really loved it, but I don't know if that would be something she'd be willing to drive around in, just because it is so outgoing and it really everyone stops and looks at it, and I don't know if she wants that much attention, honestly. But Grant says, when I was in high school, a student had a Volkswagen bus that had "This is not here" painted on the side. Was hilarious to see. Interesting. That's funny. Yeah, those old ones are so cool to see. I see them every once in a while around here, in the warmer months. And I see Shane says, I like that you mentioned in the ID Buzz video about it not having a heat pump, and especially this time of year is good info to know. Yeah. Yeah, and it's that is something that more and more cars are starting to add, but that is certainly important with that one. Yeah, maybe someday they'll add that as a mid-cycle refresh or something. That's usually when cars seem to get that. And Omar says he saw an Astrovan on the freeway. I don't see Astrovans hardly ever either. That's another one that everyone saw everywhere. At least me, I never see Astrovans anymore. So that's fun. And Antonio, thanks so much for stopping by and being a member for 19 months now. He says, hey, Matt, have you seen those 2026 M3 leaks? I have not. Interesting. Should I do a screen share and try and see if I can look this up? I don't know. Last time we did a screen share, it kind of crashed the stream like 5 minutes later, but it did reconnect pretty quickly. So let me know in the emojis there, or if in comments if you guys want to see me try and pull this up, if you guys want to check it out, or should we just save that for later? I can check that out after the live stream. I'm curious though. I heard like the soundtrack or whatever they teased that, but I haven't seen any actual leak. Um, he says, up to you. Let us know what you think. Shane says, do it. Well, maybe we'll wait a little later here because I don't want to. We have a decent amount of people here, and I don't want to drop and have it lose a bunch of people if it ends up crashing, because it was like laggy and all this stuff and just kind of made the stream worse for a little bit there. I will try a screen sharing again someday, but I want to keep going here. I also don't want to lose all the questions and stuff. But I'm very interested. Thanks for the heads up on that. Yeah, okay, we'll do it towards the end of the stream here. Maybe someone can remind me just so I don't forget. But yeah, that's so it was the leak. I guess I should just wait until I actually look it up. But was it the electric one or the gas one? Because they're doing two of them, so I'm curious which one it was. And I guess maybe they'll both look the same, but interesting. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised if it looks bad, because that's the usual BMW way, is make it as hideous as possible, and yet everyone still buys it. So clearly, they know what they're doing. But yeah, it's interesting. Thanks for the heads up on that, Antonio, and thanks for being a member for so long as well. And let me see here. Where are we? So Cartoon says, Matt, on your ID Buzz review, you mentioned the brake pushing back. Maybe that was the self-hold on the brake. My EV, I don't have to hold it at stoplights. Yeah, the auto hold, I don't think I had it on. I think it does have that, but I always usually turn that off on vehicles because to me, I don't love the auto hold feature. I don't sit in enough like long lights to make that useful usually. So for me, it's always just like, I like the ability to inch up sometimes if I need to, without having to like get on the gas for that and then back on the brake. So I always turn it off, but it could have been that possibly. But I don't think it was, because I didn't have it on the one pedal mode or anything. So I don't know. Anyway, Dave says, remember the dash top flower trend for the Volkswagen New Beetle? Yep. My mom actually had one. She had a 2001 that we did a bunch of little road trips in it. 4 of us piled into that thing when I was younger, and had some fun times in that little Beetle. And that was one of the first cars I learned to drive on, that and the 97 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport that ended up being my first car. But my mom had that Beetle for a good while, until every time it was left out in the rain, there was some kind of leak that would make it like not start. I guess there must have been some drain plug that got clogged and started maybe flooding one of the wires for the starter or something. I have no clue, but it got to the point where we couldn't leave it out in the rain. We couldn't, they couldn't diagnose it. And so we just traded it in whenever my sister needed a car, and that was the end of that. But it was it did pretty well other than that, though. It was a pretty good car for them. And let me see. Shane says his old man had an '03 Astra with 497,000 miles on the original motor. Man, yeah, those Chevy motors, those old. I'm guessing, would that be V8 or V6 in that thing? Either way, yeah. GM, honestly, they don't get enough credit sometimes, because all those like larger vehicles just do not quit. It seems they're just all so solid. And let me see. Danny says, I was on the Volkswagen Reddit page a few days ago, and someone had just crossed 550,000 miles on their 2003 Volkswagen Jetta TDI wagon. Volkswagen diesels are unkillable, especially the older ones. That's true. Those things run forever. Another very solid motor. It's a shame what happened with all the Dieselgate stuff. I mean, Volkswagen did it to themselves, but such good technology that it's just a shame they had to do that cheating crap. But I mean, it wasn't just them, a bunch of others did it too. And Nicholas says, I love ownership videos, bring them on, Matt. I appreciate that. I'm glad you like them. Yeah, this vehicle, I will say, the one that I'm getting here, this EV lease, I'm not going to do very much content on it, because one, I'm pretty confident that very few people actually will enjoy ownership content on that. Bullet and stuff like that was different, but for this, I don't think most people are going to care, honestly. And I'm also going to hardly drive it. So there's that component, that I'm not going to have a whole lot of ownership impressions, so, but like any other ownership experience, I will, be open about my experience with it. And if it turns out to be a pile of crap, you will see every breakdown. You will see every rant of every failure if it has them. Um, but if it's like the Mach E, it's very uneventful. And I do like a video once a year, and I'm like, yep, still good. And it just keeps chugging along, and there's no reason to really do more content on it, you know? Um, so yeah, but I'll definitely do at least one video a year on it and give, you know, a yearly update. And it's gonna be a little bit of a longer lease period. So it's something I'm gonna have actually for about 3.5 years here. Did a 42-month lease on it. So just because again, it's one of these things, it's so cheap that I was just like, how long can I lock in cheap transportation for myself? And like that was like the longest honestly you could do. And that's still, the vehicle still is under full warranty, you know, that entire time and all that. So I was like, yeah, might as well lock that in, because I mean, even, you know, an Uber ride to the airport is already like $90, and I think that's not going to get any cheaper. So it's like this thing's going to be insanely dirt cheap, and so that's why I wanted to lock that in nice and long. So you know, it's just one of those things. I'll do, you know, a few of those yearly updates, and you know, and then whatever else happens along the way. But Jordan says, any input on a budget-friendly, practical new stick shift car? Not too familiar with what is available on the market right now. Going to do research, but if anyone happens to have Rex, thank you. Yeah, and anyone else that would like to, you know, offer up any Rex, go for that as well. I mean, for me, first things that jump out to me, you know, Civic Si. Civic Si is always my number one. Someone asked that question, I immediately my brain goes Civic Si. You know, that is, you know, one of the best manuals, I'd argue, on the market today. The Civic is such a great family car. It has a real nice usable back seat. You have a nice amount of hatch space. If you are, you know, back seat or trunk space, if you need the hatch space, you can go to Integra. And you know, you can even get like a lightly used Integras. You know, they are, you know, comfortably under 30 grand now too. And that 1.5 T motor is solid. Speaking of high mileage stuff, I know there was one that popped up last year that was like a courier's car that had like 250,000 miles on like a 2022 Civic Touring with that 1.5 T. 250,000 miles, regular oil changes, it was fine. Obviously, sometimes age is really the main factor with some engines, but as far as mileage, that thing was good. And that's direct injected. And the fact that it's direct injected, 250,000 miles, still, you know, going no problem, it seems. You know, as far as the Carfax, it looks spotless. So I have confidence in, you know, even if you go for a used one with some miles, should have a nice long life still on it. But that would honestly, like if I was looking for like a daily driver, I was going to drive every single day, and I needed something that was, you know, budget, practical, new stick shift car, I'd probably be in a Civic Si. You know, there's some more fun stuff, some more extreme stuff. Like, you know, Elantra N is only about $5,000 or so more. And if you want to have, you know, some more fun, that is still, I think, one of the best performance bargains out there. 35 grand from, you know, 276 horsepower, great manual, still not as good as the Civics in my opinion, but still very good. You know, you have the crackles and pops, the awesome active exhaust. You can have it quiet or loud, so family friendly in that way. You know, you have the adaptive dampers. You can stiffen it up if you're in a sporty mood, but you can soften it up if you need to transport the family uneventfully. You know, you can do that too. And so Elantra N has some of that extra duality to it that you don't get in Civic Si, which is a little bit bumpier, a little bit less comfortable, I'd say. You know, Integra adds the adaptive dampers if you are after that. But you know, so those would really be my top three. I'd say Integra, Civic, and then Elantra N. I mean, there's also WRX if you you know, would like to have all-wheel drive. And it's also, even if you don't care about the all-wheel drive, you know, you do get 270 some horsepower for, you know, 30 grand, or, and I guess now you have to start with a premium, so they're like 36 now or something. They jumped up in price. But you know, there's a lot of, you know, those lower NWRX is still on the used market, even with low miles, for, you know, right around 30 grand or sometimes even a little bit under. Another really solid value, also a huge backseat. The only thing is, you know, WRX has a lot of drone. Even my wife and daughter kind of were commenting on the drone and that. And you know, again, if you need all-wheel drive, WRX is great. If you like to mod, it sounds like WRX handles mods really well for the new generation. Excuse me, but personally, you know, it's the worst as far as fuel economy goes compared to those others I mentioned too. So if you're looking, you know, if you're on a budget, you know, you're getting 20 mpg if you're lucky in the WRX. You're getting 30 in the Civic Si without even trying. Same for Integra. Elantra N's probably somewhere in the middle there. But you know, so I would just I just have a Civic Si, honestly. That's to not overcomplicate this. Personally, that would be my best recommendation. I mean, there's other stuff out there too, but there's not honestly a whole lot, Like Mazda 3 manual is really nice, but the back seat's tight, the hatch isn't as big. And not a great family vehicle unless you're all, I guess, on the smaller side, maybe. But even then, you can for the same money have more space in the Civic. And yeah, I think that's honestly, as far as budget stuff goes and just manuals, there's not a whole lot out there. So those are probably the best ones out there in my opinion. There's other stuff on the used market. You can look for like Forte GT with the manual, the Elantra N line before they got rid of that. There are some others, but those aren't going to hold up, I think, quite as well. Shifters aren't as good as the Civic and stuff. So yeah, I'd say Civic. Hopefully it helps you a little bit. Also, if you don't need as much power as Civic Si, there's also before the 2025, so your 2024 and earlier had the Civic Sport Touring hatch with the manual. That's gives you a lot of the same fun of the Si with about 20 less horsepower. And so that's another, option. If you don't want to go up to Integra, you have that Civic Sport hatch too. So another one to consider there, but I think those are really some of the best ones. Hopefully that helps you and good luck in your search. So I see, Jazz had his question answered there. And Harsha said, can you give some hints on the new car? I'm guessing it's either an Ioniq 5 or the Toyota Subaru Twins. You'll just have to wait and see. I kind of listed all the cheap ones there. So, it's one of those cheap ones that we discussed a few minutes ago there. I know that question's from earlier anyway, but I see SWE says, I'll absolutely never trust any dealer ever again. I have my horror stories and I'm only 30. Yeah, I think a lot of people hate it, and that's why, so many dealers are trying, or so many companies are trying to wiggle their way out of these dealer agreements. And they're trying to do these spinoffs and other creative ways to get rid of, the dealers. It's an unnecessary middleman in a lot of ways. Again, my brother-in-law is a car salesman. I've dealt with many very nice salesmen in my life, but a lot of bad apples as well. And it's a tough job, and it's also a high burnout job. So there's a lot of turnover. And so typically, you're not getting people that are super invested anymore like you used to. It's tough, maybe more so I think than it was even, in decades past. So yeah, I don't love dealers, and I hopefully will be able to someday not have to worry about them in the future, at least as far as purchasing goes. Obviously they'll still always be there for the service, but and let me see. Gran says, sadly, I don't think I'll see an ID Buzz anytime soon. The local dealer that had Volkswagen doesn't have that franchise anymore. It's a bummer. Harsha says, is your daughter a gamer? Mario Kart is definitely about, the extent. And even with Mario Kart, she's on the autonomous mode, basically, where, it's doing most of the steering for her and, accelerating even. So she's literally just half the time sitting there watching her car do its thing. She does play a little bit. And actually yesterday, she just discovered how to reverse in Mario Kart. And so she was just having fun just reversing, and then I'll give my reactions and, act like it's the craziest thing ever. And so that was one of the fun things there yesterday. But yeah, I'm sure she'll be a gamer little by little as time goes on. But right now, yeah, she's not quite 4 yet. So pretty limited there. And TFI says Paw Patrol gang. Yep, we're just on the Paw Patrol thing right now. I'm surprised they don't have any. Maybe they have Paw Patrol video games. We haven't come across that yet, but yeah, that is one of our favorites. And Raphael, okay, yeah, we talked about that already with the Tesla there. And Dragon Car Guy says it looks like they've been trying to hotwire it, but they haven't gotten far since it's a manual. Yeah, you think they wouldn't even try with a manual? I feel like they said something about how like manual transmissions are the best anti-theft device these days, because like most car thieves these days don't even know how to drive a manual. So that is surprising that it's the Lancer and they're trying to hotwire and they come back over and over. Like they fail at hotwiring and then have the guts to come back and try it multiple times. That's surprising, especially for a Lancer. I guess they're kind of rare. There's not a whole lot out there, so maybe the parts are going for a nice premium, but I can't imagine there's a lot of high-tech parts in the Lancer that are, worth big money. That's interesting. But hopefully they don't succeed, and hopefully you catch them, if you can wire up a camera or something. do some kind of creative thing to catch them in the act or something. That's terrifying. That's terrible. Sorry to hear that. And Harsha says, one of my friends got into a very bad accident. He got T-boned by a Prius, and while he was in his Model 3. Luckily, the car took the damage like a champ without injuring him. That's crazy. I mean, that is one really great thing about all the Teslas. They are very safe in crashes. And that was always a focus for Tesla. It is, a very, very good safe car for sure. Yeah, glad your friend was okay though. That's definitely no fun. I've definitely, as you guys have seen, I've been through my share of accidents, in the past 10 years or so. Didn't love that. But thankfully, it sounds like with a lot of this driver assistance stuff that's been coming out in the past, 5 or 10 years, some of those accident rates have started to decline, and the severity of a lot of these accidents has gone down with the automatic emergency braking systems and stuff. But let me see. Costco Law Degree says, I know you've driven a Blackwing CT5V. I saw the video. At what price point would you actually consider one with decent options? How much depreciation does it need before it's worth buying? I mean, personally, I don't have the money. I probably will never have the money for a Blackwing as much as I desperately want to sell a kidney to get one. I love that car so much. But I would argue they are worth MSRP. I never condone markups, but I would absolutely pay MSRP for a Blackwing if I could afford one. Obviously there are, some that have been depreciating. I check it just because, I like dreaming every once in a while. I think last I saw they were down to about 80 grand for an automatic one. The manuals, though, are holding their value a little bit better. I think the cheapest manual I saw was like 86 or 87. Honestly, that's one of those things that comes down to what it's worth to you. But as far as what it's worth to me, if I'm, if you are shopping at something at 85 grand versus, I think you can, sneak out of the Cadillac dealer if you can actually order one, like a base one, because I don't think you really need all the options. Like the carbon fiber packs are so expensive. That's for people that just have money to burn. I think I would do a regular bare bones Blackwing for what I think they're like 100 grand or 98 or something like that. I'd go for something like that. Obviously you're talking a 15 grand difference, I suppose. It's not chump change, but if you have 85, you might have almost 100. I don't know. But I would just, And then that's one of the vehicles. I don't think they're going to be going away, this year or anything, but that is a car that's not going to last forever. And that's another reason why I think, get them while you can, enjoy them while you can, especially while gas prices are still relatively cheap. And just enjoy it to the fullest. So no one's ever guaranteed tomorrow. I know it's not a very financially sound thing to say, but I truly am a firm believer in live in the moment. If you want a Blackwing and you can afford it, don't wait for it to drop 5 grand in price or something. Because you look at CTSV, the regular CTSVs before they went to the Blackwing thing. They depreciated obviously, but not a ton. I don't see them super cheap. I haven't. It's been a while since I've actually looked up CTSVs, but none of these things, they're not dropping to 30 grand. I don't think you will ever see something get to like some stupid cheap price. They are always going to be desirable and sought after. I think that's only going to increase as time goes on. You might not even see Blackwings depreciate very much. They'll come down a little bit, but I think they're going to start the upward swing pretty quickly. Especially again, once Cadillac announces the end of them, which might not come for a few more years. Maybe they'll keep it going, until 2030 or something. We'll have to see, at least as long as emissions are lax, maybe they'll keep it going, for that whole period. But yeah, I would get one whenever you can afford it. Fantastic cars. I won't keep going on that, but love the Blackwings. Even CT4V Blackwing, if you want to get into something cheaper in the meantime and you want to work your way up to the 5, CT4V Blackwing is also magical, and I would happily daily drive that. Obviously, I'd want the 5, but the 4 is not a bad compromise if you are trying to wait it out on the depreciation there. And also, again, picking up a CTSV in the meantime, if you want to enjoy some of that same fun, just a little bit older, and that fits your budget better while you're waiting. You get some of that fun there, more immediately too. And Raphael says, I got 3 inches of snow today, and the high this week will be 15 degrees, so no car detailing. Man, that's unfortunate. Yeah, it's we actually just got a bunch of snow here today. And I was actually right before this live stream, I was out snow blowing frantically trying to make sure I make my 8:02 deadline or 9:02 deadline here for the live streams that I often show up at. So, but yeah, I'm glad it's only 3 inches and not too much more there for you. But I know a lot of people are going to get a lot of snow here in the next few days, I think. So stay safe out there, everyone. But Michelle says 200s and darts have also disappeared off the roads. I still see them occasionally, but they disappeared pretty quick. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised being Chrysler products. Yeah, that's another one too, where like I've seen, I mean, the motors in those, again, we're talking about Pentastars in the 200, and we're talking about, the Tiger Shark motor and the darts. I mean, maybe the Tiger Shark didn't do quite as well, but the Pentastar, I mean, 200s should not be, falling off the roadways because of the engine. Maybe the ZF9 speed, but that thing's in a bunch of other cars even these days, and I don't think it's a terrible transmission. So you have ZF9 speed, Pentastar V6. I don't know what I'm missing here. I think it truly is just appreciation and the fact that they have a lower threshold for totaling them, maybe, and that's part of why they vanish more. I maybe someone did more research into this. I'd love to like do a deep dive on this someday and figure out why some cars disappear off the road. Sure, there is some of that where it's junk and it just disappears, but like a 200 shouldn't be junk based on the parts that I know about. And it was a nice car. You can go back. I reviewed a 200. That was one of my earliest press cars, honestly. I loved that thing. I thought it was a great cruiser, super comfortable, exactly what that kind of buyer wants. I thought they nailed it with the 200. That was one of the biggest confusions for me, as I saw that car get so much crap, so much hate, and insane deals. Like they just didn't sell super well either, and I couldn't figure it out. The styling was the same as the Pacifica, which sold really well in the front, and it was a bunch of space. It was a nice interior. I cannot figure it. I do not understand it. I think that's a really underappreciated car, honestly. And if you were looking for a beater or something, I think it'd be solid. Again, Pentastar V6 should be pretty bulletproof even back then. And it's a good car. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but I love the Chrysler 200. But yeah, you're right about not seeing them on the road very much. It's sad. And B. Mitchell said more so than the actual vehicles that were culled from cash for clunkers, but the availability of used parts. That's tough too. Okay, that's a very good point. Thanks for pointing that out. So maybe that's the problem with stuff like the 200 too. Maybe they quit making or supporting some of that stuff. But again, even the cash for clunkers stuff, just killed that part market. I didn't think about that. Thanks for pointing that out. I love the interaction here and everyone's different knowledge bases that can feed into that. That's great. And SWE says 7 to 10 grand off 2025 C8 Stingrays. Get your checkbooks out. I hadn't seen that. Interesting. I wonder why. Maybe everyone that's got one already has one now at this point. If they're doing that much off a new one, then that must mean that used ones are starting to get to some fun prices. Interesting. I haven't looked at C8s. Maybe we should make a list of fun things to look up here towards the end when we're not worried about the stream dying. We'll look up used C8s, and then we're going to look up the 2026 M3 there. Thanks for the heads up on that. I didn't know they were discounting brand new C8s. And Cam says, hi, Matt. No, I haven't been in the live for a while, but I could finally join. Well, thanks for stopping by. Happy to see you here. And I hope you're doing well, Cam. And Dave says, Diablo has gone up, appeals to those who can't afford a Countach. Okay, cool. I can see that. TFI says, I finally got to ride in a VBWX. I can fit in the Recaros and it's tight, but not Focus ST tight. Shifter felt just like a manual Crosstrek. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's basically the same manual there. You know how Subaru loves the parts share and phone it in. So thanks for all the love there, guys. And I see the 100s, I'm guessing. Maybe unless someone commented, we're talking about looking that stuff up later. So, okay, we'll do that. And let me see. I'm glad you got to try out a VB, though. Hope you enjoyed it. And Cam says, would you rather have a TLX 2.4 or the 3.5 liter all-wheel drive for similar money? Is the 9-speed not as bad as people say? Yeah, I mean, I don't love the 9-speed, but, for a non-sporty, just comfy daily, it's fine. My biggest gripe with the 9-speed is that sometimes in certain vehicles, when you're in reverse and you go to hit drive, it takes forever to, like, switch over. So if you're someone who likes doing quick parking lot maneuvers and stuff like that, that's really my biggest annoyance with the 9-speed. Obviously, it's not sporty, it's slow with the manual shifts, and it can occasionally be a little rough, but, yeah, it's not too bad. I think there's been some other complaints about it I'm not super knowledgeable about, but I think a lot of stuff's been taken care of by recalls and all that. So, um, between those two, I don't know what the fuel economy difference would be between the two, but if you're not concerned about that, I'd say why not go for the V6, right? You have better sound, better power. That'd probably be the way I would go. And Harsha says, do you think electric powertrains can give classic cars a new lease on life, especially with parts on these classic cars being so unreliable and parts being hard to find for them? Um, I think that there's, a small subset of people that are doing that. And I think, I don't think there's a huge amount of appeal for that, honestly, primarily because I mean, like, at least speaking from my own standpoint, I think a lot of other people in the classic car loving world is that you're buying that car for the experience of everything that car brought, you know, in that time period. The quirkiness of that engine and its sound and its characteristics and how it made the car drive. And the simplicity as well of, a powertrain like that. Obviously, an EV powertrain is pretty simple as well, but it's not something you can break out a wrench and just start fixing yourself if something goes wrong. And so, like personally, like if I'm buying a classic car, I'm buying it as a time machine. I want that old sound. I want that old power. I want all that old stuff. And this is why I've never loved resto mods even, as far as like just people dropping brand new Corvette motors in some, classic cruiser from the 50s or something. Like, I mean, obviously everyone does things differently, and it's not for me to say how other people should modify their cars, but I never in a million years would do that stuff. Like, I can kind of understand people that put like modern or better brakes on some classics just to make them a little safer. Seat belts, I think, is a decent modification to do as well. But like honestly, I would want something with like drum brakes, like bias ply tires, like the whole 9 yards. Like that's what I want if I'm gonna get a classic, because I want to be transported back to that time period of that driving experience. That's what I want. If I want to have, an EV driving experience, I might as well be in something that's not going to kill me if I crash, and something that's, going to, not have the other part issues. Because the thing is, like, okay, you swap in an EV powertrain, great. So power wise, you're set. But all the other parts are the parts that are also hard to find. Honestly, I think harder to find than the actual engine and transmission parts is finding side mirrors and finding, radio buttons. And, those types of things are, I think, the harder things to find. And, I mean, maybe some of those types of other trim parts, you can maybe 3D print these days and do some other things creatively to keep that stuff going. But, I think if we ever get to a world where either gas is super expensive or gas stations are harder to come by, or, we all switch over to e-fuels that are super expensive or something like that, I could see maybe in that standpoint, if you want to actually have a driver classic, then maybe the EV thing would make more sense. I think a lot of people, they hardly ever drive them. It's a fun experience, tinkering with the engine and all that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, certainly that's something people are, offering these kinds of kits, and there are some people that are going for that. But I don't think there's a lot of appeal for that, especially with the current generation that's into classics. Maybe when more people, around our age, start to be into some of these classics, maybe that's when you will see a little bit more of that, kind of take off. For people who love EVs, but they, love the old styling, you might see some more of that. But for me, I want a time machine. I want everything the way it was in that in that year that it was built, you know. But yeah, it's interesting to see. And let me see. Vic says, Matt, what's your take on GM if they're bringing back hybrids? Well, they said they are bringing them back. I mean, it's what everyone, you know, it's the in thing. You know, 5 years ago everyone was talking about EVs. Now everyone's talking about hybrids and plug-in hybrids and how excited they are about those. So GM's bringing them back. It's great. It's just they're taking way too long to do it. They're talking like plug-in hybrid Equinox coming in, I think 2027 or 2028, and I would argue by that point you're almost missing the boat. And the thing is, like, they have a plug-in hybrid Equinox on sale today in China. It's been on sale there for I think about a year or so, and it's the same Equinox we get here, and it's the same powertrain, I believe, aside from the electrical stuff. And I'm like, why can't you just take that part and put it in the American ones? Like, what is taking 3 years here? I'm sure there's a good reason and there's a good answer to that question. But on the outside looking in, like anything that any company has in other markets that is, you know, applicable to their current cars, it should have been in there yesterday. And why they're dragging their feet and going slow with this when they see Toyota raking in the cash with all their hybrids, and Honda, you know, having a great sales year last year with all their hybrids booming. You know, why are you gonna just let everyone else have all the sales for the next 3 years for no good reason? I really can't figure it out. Again, I'm sure there's a better answer, but it just seems bizarre to me. They're taking so long. But also GM is doing a really good job with their EVs, so I think they feel less pressure. I think they know that is ultimately where we're going to end up, and so, you know, I don't think it's something they're prioritizing with the hybrids and the plug-in hybrids because, you know, it still is going to be a stopgap until the battery tech improves, you know, and more people, you know, can afford them and all that, you know, with these cheaper ones coming out. And so I think people, you know, I think GM is just assuming, you know, everyone's just going to go for this new Bolt that's coming this year. That'll probably be, you know, 30 grand or whatever, and go for all that stuff instead. But yeah, they still should be like Toyota and have everything, offer everything, and bring down those emissions, you know, quicker with people that aren't ready to go EV yet. So I think Toyota still has the right approach there. And, you know, again, the sales and the trends, it seems like Toyota really had a crystal ball. And let me see. So Jalen says, trying to decide between a 2011 X5 35D and a 2011 X3 28i. If you or anyone have any knowledge on which I should go with. I'm not an expert on those, honestly, so I'm not going to be able to give you a great impression aside from, honestly, I've never even, I've driven those generations. I don't know if I've ever reviewed them on camera. But both of those were around when I worked at a BMW dealer. So I detailed those when they were new. But, you know, obviously with the diesel, you know, that's going to be a completely different beast versus just the regular, you know, inline six you had in that old X3 back then. The 28Is, I believe, still were the 6-cylinder. Great motors either way. I don't have any expertise on those, so I can't give you any great recommendations as far as other than, you know, X3, X5, obviously you get more space and all that. And the X5 is going to be the nicer of the two, and obviously probably the more fuel efficient of the two with the diesel as well. So if you're into the diesel life, and I don't know about that motor in particular, but you know, I'd probably go X5, all things being equal otherwise. But yeah, I wish I had more insight to provide. Maybe someone else does here. But best of luck deciding, Jalen. And let me see. Antonio saying about the M3, not sure, but the back looked hideous and the interior looked like an older Prius dash. Interesting. Well, if the older Prius dash, that is something they did show off. What is the name of that thing? They just talked about it at CES last month. They revealed the full interior of these new class vehicles, where I agree. It's like, what was that? I think that's 3rd gen Prius dash that it looks like, where you just have that little like bar at the base of the windshield there. I don't love that either. So that I already know about. That's something we've seen, a month ago. But as far as the exterior styling looking weird, checks out for BMW, I suppose. And let me see. Jason says, I missed what Matt is getting. I didn't say what I'm getting yet. Thanks for filling them in, TFI. But he says something about, hold on, it reloaded the comments here. Could be a Mitsubishi Mirage, but I could be wrong. Yeah, it's an EV, so it's not the Mirage. I know TFI, it's a big disappointment. Mirage, that's yeah, and that's a car I still want to review this year just for the laughs. And I think honestly, I think Car Confections did a Mirage review, and I think it actually did pretty well for them. So might actually not be a complete waste of time too, just from a view standpoint. So we'll see if this is the year of me reviewing a Mirage. Cam says Ioniq 6 probably is his guess there for the EV. We will see. That was one of the ones that I was looking into. I've talked about that in the past. And yeah, we'll have to see what it is here in the next week or two. And let me see. B. Mitchell says, had a 96 Chevy Astro for work from cradle to grave. The 4.3 liter Vortec V6 got swapped at 176,000 miles when a wrist pin let go, but it made it to 198 before they sold it out under me. Crap electricals, though. Okay. Interesting. But I mean, it's still pretty good service for a 90s Chevy, I'd say. So that's funny. And glad you got to experience one of those there. And Jason says maybe the Mini SE, they had great lease deals on those recently. I don't think the SE is currently on sale. I will say I did look into the Mini SE. That was actually one of my front runners initially. But all the 2024s I think have already been taken away and leased. And I did actually come across a couple like loaners and like 2023s that hadn't been titled. And I actually called a mini dealer and said, hey, is there any way you can lease this thing and get the tax credit? She's like, it's not eligible for the tax credit because it's 2023. I think you can only do like the prior model year, and there's a limit to where that lease tax credit cuts off. So I was trying the Mini SE because honestly, even though it's about 110 miles of range, that's all I mean, that's more than I would need still. And I love minis, as many of you know. So that was one of the ones I actually was bummed didn't work out. I did look into it. Maybe I didn't leave every stone unturned, but I really tried to figure that one out. But there was just none around here new, even remotely close. Like I think the nearest one that I saw was in Texas. Last year, like I guess maybe like 12 months or so prior, I did see some pretty killer lease deals on them back then. If I had been in that position last year, that probably would have been something I would have tried to really, squeeze a mini dealer to get one of those, dirt cheap. But it's not that. And that the problem with that too is they are a little pricier, and that's just mini dealers aren't used to doing giant discounts like some other dealers are, like the Hyundai dealers, even some of the Subaru dealers, Toyota not so much, but especially Hyundai and the Fiat 500 is another one that got brought up. Those types of things are the things that the Stellantis is used to doing huge discounts. Hyundai is used to doing really big discounts. I mean, you can see the lease deals for your area even right now on Hyundai's site. I mean, they're offering these stupid cheap leases on Ioniq 5s, on Ioniq 6s. I even uncovered like there's some places have Kona EVs pretty cheap. And then even like Nero EV, it's been out for a few years. So that's sitting around for a while. Not a whole lot of interest in those either. So there are some of those you can get some pretty good lease deals on too, because again, Kia dealers are used to doing big discounts. Same with Hyundais and others. So, and they're also, from my experience, some of the more assertive salesmen too. They really want to make a deal at the Hyundai and Kia dealership. So again, we'll have to see how it all played out here soon. I don't want to be a tease, but I just don't want to reveal it on here and squash any minor interest that people would have in it once I actually post the video, because I'm pretty confident almost no one's going to watch. Or if they do, they'll watch just to complain about what I chose and then leave and never watch any coverage on that car ever again. But anyway, B. Mitchell says the Astro needs a fuel pump every 75,000 miles. Okay, well, that's definitely not ideal. Flying Ryan says, Superdorks fan. Thanks for stopping by, Ryan. And let me see. The 6F Corolla is very forgiving and easy for novices who are learning, as far as Jordan's question there. The thing, though, about the Corolla manual, the non-GR Corolla, the regular Corolla, is that it's got a lot of rev hang. Maybe there's a way to mod it so that it doesn't have rev hang with a tune or something. But, man, the rev hang was atrocious in the Corolla manual, the regular one that I had for a week. And they quit making that a couple of years ago too. So you have to go for a used one for that. But man, that thing, I was so rough, like starting with that vehicle. I could never do smooth shifts in that manual Corolla. It was just like it was always a guessing game, and the rev hang was so bad. But and I guess also getting back to Jordan's question about affordable family manual cars, GR Corolla is a little tight in the back seat, but if you don't care about that and you're okay with a used one, there are some of those dropping into the mid to low 30s as well. That's my favorite of the bunch as far as hot hatches and stuff goes. So that's another fantastic one. But again, tighter back seats, so not a great family car. Hatch is pretty small on that, which is why it didn't jump to my top of my recommendation here for you. But if those things aren't important for you, then I think Jerk Roll is the most fun of the bunch. But let me see. Doug says, "Hey Matt, if Jim ever decides to release a next gen Camaro, do you think it would be EV, ICE, or hybrid?" If you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have said EV. Now, it still is really hard because again, they can't just engineer a car for the next 4 years and not know what's on the other side after that. So I would say I'd have to say price still would be EV, as much as a lot of people say, oh well, we can pollute as much as we want for the next 4 years. I still feel like it's gonna be, unless the only way Camaro comes back or does a next gen version, if they still have the supplier and the production capacity to just basically take 6th gen and do a reskin, like a refresh reskin, like new clip on the front and on the back, spruce up the interior with a new dash and call it a day, maybe you'd see that, for something they could justify selling for the next 4 years. But I don't, I mean, that factory's been closed since, when did that close up? Was it December they made the last Camaro? I mean, maybe, obviously by then they would have known the election results. Maybe they would have, said, hey, wait, let's hurry up and rush out some, patch together thing and then sell that for the next 4 years. I don't know. But I would have to think, they initially teased a coupe kind of thing on the Ultium platform back when they debuted the Ultium platform. So I think if they were to do something, it would be that. But they're seeing all the hate that Camaro or that Charger's getting, and I don't think GM wants that heat. So, if Charger turned out to be some giant hit, or if it does this year turn into some giant hit for the EV version, which I think it's got about a snowball's chance in hell. But if that actually turns out to be, a popular vehicle, you could see GM do that. But I think GM, honestly, at this point, if their options are EV or nothing, they're probably just going to be happy doing nothing, and just leave it in its grave, so that they don't have people say, "Oh, you're desecrating the name," and have all the same crap that the Mopar fans are giving Dodge right now. So I think you're not going to see it come back. I don't think, unfortunately, for a long time. I mean, again, maybe if, I can't figure out a world where Camaro actually does return. I know GM said it's going to return, but that was back when they thought they could do it as an EV and people wouldn't hate them for it. But now I just feel like there's just no chance. We'll see though. I'd love to be wrong, obviously, but I'm not optimistic for a Camaro return anytime soon. And Jason says Corolla is great for a couple, not so much for a family. Hatch is smaller. Yeah, same deal. I agree. He says I had one too. So thanks for sharing your ownership experience too. And BT says, hi Matt, 3-row Japanese SUV or van that's quiet and the best seat. I mean, I guess it comes down to what your budget is. Because if you want, if you're talking best seats as far as comfort, or if you're talking space and size, I mean, for me, I'd say Grand Highlander, TX would be the best. I mean, they're built in America, but best Japanese engineered. I still think those are the best 3-row in their segments on the market. Just because they have a massive amount of space, basically more than everybody else. You have Toyota reliability, really nice interior, really well executed. But I think if you want quiet, they're not the quietest. TX is obviously quieter than Grand Highlander, but I think as far as quietness goes, you're probably going to be best off. It doesn't have a ton of space in the 3rd row, but the CX-90 from Mazda is probably going to be the best bet. And vans, I mean, obviously there's only Sienna and Odyssey, and both of them are a little noisy, honestly, especially Sienna with that four-cylinder having to really work hard sometimes. So yeah, I'd say Mazda CX-90 is probably gonna be your best bet there, unless you want to go up to the luxury stuff. In which case, I'd say MDX is also very good. And again, yeah, TX. Um, but yeah, that's probably the best recommendations there. And let me see. Sham says 2018 Toyota TRD or 2018 Accord 2.0T. Comes down to whether you want the V6 or you want the turbo. Very different driving experiences. The Accord will be happy to roast the tires with no front diff. The TRD, at least you got to rev up the motor a little bit before it tries to roast the tires, so it's a little bit more well behaved. And you have arguably better sound, I'd say, with the Toyota as well. It seems like the TRD also holds its value way better. Raphael has one, and I mean, it just does not depreciate, it seems, versus Accord 2.0Ts. You're going to drop off like any other normal Accord. So I'd say Toyota is probably the better buy there. Cara says, recently watched a video about Porsche's six-stroke engine on Engineering Explains channel. Have you heard much about it, and what are your thoughts? I covered it in the weekly update whenever they first had the patent come out about it. I haven't watched his video. It seems really cool. And it's just great to see more evolutions to the gasoline engine to improve that efficiency and the power and performance. And it's great to see that and see they're continuing to work on that stuff too. So but yeah, I don't have too many other thoughts aside from just I'm excited for it. I hope it does see the light of day someday. Cars Tech Wood says picking up an EV9 all-wheel drive for $199 a month lease. That's wild. I haven't seen anything that cheap for the EV9 around here. I will say it's not an EV9. I wouldn't want something that big, honestly, just for a backup car anyway. But yeah, if you can get a deal on one of those, absolutely. They were running a cheap deal for a while, but I hadn't seen anything like that recently. I think that was kind of earlier on. But they are fantastic values. If you can get one of those things, even if you can get an EV9, I mean, because they are like 70 grand for the loaded ones. Even if you can get one of those for under $500 a month for a lease, I think you're winning there. I mean, it's a lot of car, really nice luxury, and I think you can get one under 500 pretty easily, so even without a crazy amount of money down. So yeah, EV lease deals, I'm telling you what, if you want cheap transportation, that's where it's at right now. Get them while you can. But let me see. Linda, thanks so much for being a member for 30 months now. She says, I would love a hybrid Mustang. Any chance or thoughts? I mean, Ford said for S550, I think they teased it in like 2018 or 2019. And I think I remember an executive saying, like, we are going to be doing a hybrid Mustang. And then they tabled it because it seemed like things were going EV and they're, doing Mach-E and all that. And now we're seeing hybrid becoming popular again. I just don't know if they're going to ever do a hybrid Mustang. It sounds like they're really leaning into the America V8 kind of crowd with the Mustangs and leaning into the V8. And I mean, even EcoBoost, we have like the new RTR thing coming, but they got rid of the manual and the EcoBoost. They kind of resigned the EcoBoost to just being a commuter, just Mustang for people who don't care about, an enthusiastic vehicle necessarily. And so, yeah, I'd love to see that too. And Ford did say that more hybrids are coming. They're primarily focusing, though, I think, on hybridizing their trucks and their large SUVs. Because again, that's where they're getting the biggest cafe hits. They're selling a ton of those things and they all get, piss poor fuel economy. So I think that's really where the biggest need is right now. And I mean, I guess, especially also with how Mustang's selling so terribly these days, you're not talking about a big cafe boost. I always am thinking in regards to emissions regulations, and I need to put that out of my head for the next 4 years because it's completely irrelevant anymore. But I just feel like if they're actually trying to improve fleet efficiency even for their own metrics, Mustang's not going to really do a whole lot. And I don't think they're seeing a lot of people that want a hybrid Mustang, to be completely honest. And so I think they probably read the room and realized, hey, everyone's happy with the Coyote. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think that, even though sales are slightly down, I think you're going to see, again, a lot of people continue to go over to Mustang from Charger and from Challenger. Once they're aging out of those vehicles, they'll say, well, Mustang's the last game in town with a V8. let's grab it, and they kind of put that aside. I think most of these Mopar fans, as much as they're die-in-the-wool Mopar fans, they'd probably rather go to a Ford V8 before they go to an electric or a 6-cylinder Charger, most likely. So, yeah, I don't think we'll see a hybrid Mustang, maybe ever. I mean, again, I'd love to be wrong, but I just don't have any hope for that, unfortunately. But great question. And thanks so much, Linda, for being a member for 30 months now. I really appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. And let me see here. I'll try and get caught up on the questions too, so we're not so far behind on on talking with everyone here. But we're not too far behind, I think. So Raphael says, someone tried to steal my Corolla years ago and left it 20 feet away because he couldn't drive a manual. Man, that's hilarious. Yeah, getting back to truck and car guys thing there. And Harsha says, luckily with a Mirage with a manual transmission, the anti-theft system is probably a joke on these cars. The thieves could get in easily. The Mirage doesn't have a locking steering wheel, however. Yeah, but I think, I don't know if there's a high theft rate for Mirages. I'm not sure how many people are looking to get parts off of Mirage. I don't know. Maybe there are some. Truck Car Guy says, I deliberately keep belongings in my cars to a minimum. Also, that is a base Lancer. It's not an Evo, and it has barely any features at all. It doesn't even have the functioning AC, no compressor. The other reason they've gotten as far as they have is that I can't lock the driver's door from the outside. Have to get the door locks rekeyed. Okay. So it's a low barrier to entry, so that's why they keep coming back. That sucks. Hope it all gets worked out and get the new locks or whatever. But you would think the manual, they just wouldn't even bother. That's surprising. But sorry to hear that. Even around here, I mean, there's been every once in a while, again, there's break-ins, but it's always people with unlocked cars that, it's just easy. And so you have people just walking around pulling door handles, and every once in a while they get lucky and help themselves with whatever's inside, or if it's worth stealing, then they steal it. But locks are definitely key. No pun intended. Anyway, let me see. See the Mirage discussion there. Theodore says, do you think the new 01 has too much horsepower? I guess we'll find out this year. Hopefully I get to review one this year and see. Is there ever so much thing as too much horsepower? Maybe in some cases, but I think as far as 01, probably not. Obviously it's one of those things. I hope that the people that drive them know what they're doing, which is a foolish hope. But, I think Corvette owners, at least the real enthusiasts that are going for the 01s, typically are the ones, they do the free track day at Ron Fellows and the free driver education. And a lot of Corvette owners, especially the 01 owners, are, track rats that are really, knowing what they're doing versus the average Corvette buyer, So, I hope that it'll, be deployed respectfully and, safely. But I think 01 will be great. I'm looking forward to it. I don't see the need for it. I mean, personally, yes, I think Z06 is basically perfection. That's another car, man. Z06 and Blackwing, probably like one of my dream garages. I would maybe, I mean, LC500 is also another one that's really high up there, but Z06 is just heads and shoulders, such a much better driving car dynamically and has a better sound, I'd say. And man, Z06. I loved having that. I had one of those for 4 days for a press car. Oh, man, I love that thing so much. Z06 and Blackwing, call it a day. You don't need any other car. Manual for the Blackwing, so you have that fun. Then you have the awesome dual clutch in the Z06. Obviously they have to have all the progressions, and we'll see even Zora, put probably the E-motor from the E-Ray, on top of the 01 and go even faster and have the all-wheel drive. But Z06 I think is already far more of a pinnacle than you'll ever need for most people. But let me see here. Harsha says, I remember the 200 got killed off by Chrysler even before they announced it, and that the 200 only had a 3-year run. Yeah, it was short. I can't remember why. See, these are the nerdy videos I would make if I was just making stuff that I was like, that if I was independently wealthy and I wasn't doing this as an actual career, that if I ever win the lottery, I'll probably just be like, oh, well, maybe I'll just like do a documentary on the 200 today and just like do a Savage Geese style deep dive into a car that no one cares about, just for my own gratification and the enjoyment of 5 other people that care about that. But that's interesting about the 200. Next time I go on a Stellantis event, I need to talk to some of the old school people that work there and get some of the inside scoop on 200. But let me see. G Doggy, thanks for stopping by. And Vishal says, when my parents were getting rid of our 05 Chrysler Town and Country, we looked at a 200. Nice car. What killed the deal was we found the seats uncomfortable. Went to Volkswagen and walked out with a new 2016 Passat. Nice. I mean, Passat also had bigger back seat. There were some good sedans back then, so I can completely understand, the struggle of the 200, I suppose. Because there was just way more. You had Fusion back then, also another really great one. A lot of really good choices at that point. Let me see. TFI says, okay, mini review of the VBWX. Infotainment slow, shifter gummy, ride rough. It's fun, but it's fun to drive and cheaper than an SI. So I give it 6.5 lesbians out of 10 golden retrievers. Nice. Yeah, I agree with you on all that stuff. I mean, to me, the shifter is pretty crisp. It was just a long throw. So maybe, I don't know if the one you drove had a little bit of a rougher life with its shifter or something. I don't know, but yeah, it is a good value for sure. So if you want the most horsepower per dollar with a manual and all-wheel drive, I mean, you can't beat it. But thanks for sharing your thoughts there, DFI. SWE says, any new S2000 rumors? The Honda rep at the Detroit Auto Show said he thinks it's coming. Interesting. I'm curious who the rep was, whether it was an actual like PR person or it was like a one of the hired like people that just has their card of talking points. I will say Honda they teased a few years back a new NSX and a new coupe under a sheet. And with the electric thing, it's easy to have the skateboard platform, and you can mix and match, and you can have various body styles without having to go to as much trouble. So after we see, we just saw at CES there, they showed off the Zero sedan and then the SUV. Those are coming in 2026, or I guess end of was it or beginning of 2026 for the SUV, and I think mid to late 2026 for the sedan. And then after those, I could conceivably see them do some type of halo kind of sports car. But I think NSX just has to come first. And I don't think there's anything about even when that's coming. But they have straight up said, new NSX is coming and it's going to be electric. So I think that's the next sports car from Honda group to look for. As far as S2000, anyone that is hoping for an S2000 is going to be disappointed. If you are a fan of current S2000s, because there's no way they're ever going to do anything as magical as the original. It's going to be way more expensive. It's going to be at least 70 grand. I'm saying it right now. So it's going to be super expensive. Very few people are going to buy it as a result. And the best thing you can hope for is Type R motor, in some kind of larger, heavier, because all the safety stuff and all the other stuff you need these days. Backup cameras, you can't have this tiny little, hidden away radio like you had in the old S2000. There's just, it's not going to be as good. Anyone that's been hoping for a new S2000, I just have told in the past year or two, like, just get an old S2000 because that's what you love, right? Like everyone that it's hoping for a new S2000 wants an old S2000. That's what they want. So get an old S2000. That's just my take on that. Because I've just been so burned out by all these awesome cars that come out, and then everyone complains they're too expensive, they're too hard to get, there's dealer markups, blah 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 blah. There's a whole laundry list of complaints for these new vehicles, and most of these people would just be better off buying the old thing that they know and love and that they've been wanting. Just get that. I mean, S2000s, I know they're expensive, they've appreciated, but there's a good reason why. And so I say if you love S2000s, get an S2000. If you already have an S2000, buy a backup one or baby the one you have, enjoy what you have, because there's never going to be anything like that coming ever again. You're never going to get a 9,000 RPM red line, I don't think, unless you're talking about some exotic hypercar kind of thing. you're not going to see that kind of stuff. Um, so I would say if you want an S2000 or something like that, I'd say look into again other used stuff, or have the goal be like a Porsche GT3 with 9,000 RPMs and a very pure raw experience. And unfortunately, that stuff's just all really expensive now. But I'd go for try and scoop up like a used 991 or even a 997 that's a little bit newer than an S2000 at least, GT3, and get a similar kind of high revving screaming kind of raw experience. That's really the best alternative I can say if you must have something that isn't an S2000. But yeah, I'd love to see it. And sorry to rant, but it's never going to happen. And if it does, everyone's going to hate it. I guarantee you everyone's going to hate it. There's no way they're going to do it in a way that actual S2000 owners are going to be happy with. But let me see. Cam says, I was skiing around Deep Creek Lake, Maryland this weekend. Do you ski, Matt? And if so, have you been there? I do not ski. I don't really do winter sports at all, honestly. I'm not opposed to them. Just never really had too many opportunities. There was a Toyota trip back in the beginning of 2020 before everything went to crap, where we were in Park City, and there actually was like a free day where we had the opportunity to either do like snowmobiling, skiing, snowboarding. There was a few different options. And I was actually going to do snowmobiling. That was going to be what I was going to choose. But then like, I was just feeling crappy that day. I don't know if it was the altitude or what, but I just did not feel up for going out and exerting myself out in the wild there. So I actually just missed that opportunity even. But yeah, not a winter sport person myself. It's always been, a fun idea. I think I would definitely choose skiing over snowboarding because like I've always been terrible with skateboarding, but I've obviously been fine on bikes and stuff. So I think like having something to do with my hands to help stabilize me is key for me. So I think skis would be probably agreeable with me. I just think I never really had the opportunity. I mean, we have a little place nearby called Seven Springs. It's like 50 minutes away. And I've been up there, I think once or twice a long time ago, but never did anything beyond like snow tubing and stuff like that. So, yeah, but I'd love to try someday, and I hope you had a fun time skiing there. And Bruce says, what are your favorite racetracks that you've ever driven on? VIR is one of my favorites. I really love VIR. It's just really fun. I think it's also because one of my most fun track experiences was at VIR. Actually, two of my most fun track experiences was at VIR. So I did a ride along in a Viper ACR at VIR. That was wild. That was a long time ago, like talking 15 years ago, probably at this point. And then, but CT5E Blackwing, that media drive for the first pre-refresh of the Blackwing was at VIR, and that was the fastest I've ever been on track. I mean, because the fun thing with VIR, if you've never driven it before, is there's like a back like straightaway kind of that has a little kink in the middle of it, and if you are confident enough in your own driving, confident enough in the car, you can stay flat through that kink while you're already like flying on this back straight, and then you go down, and you kind of have like almost one of those hills where it's like you're going off into the abyss. And it's a fun track. So I really like VIR. And I'm trying to think of other tracks. I will say one track I don't love is Sonoma. I don't enjoy Sonoma. It's kind of fun with the uphill, kind of turns, but I don't love all the walls. And there's not a whole lot of great opportunities to really like ring out a car as far as straightaways. I kind of like stuff with slightly higher top speeds personally. And that was the fun thing with VIR. That Blackwing, I can't remember if it was 135 or 155 on that back kink, but I was like flat, like 135 at least, going through this kink in the back of VIR, just like, with full faith that this thing's got grip. These, the aerodynamics are doing their thing. This car is, rocking, and it was solid. But that's the higher speed stuff is the stuff it's the most fun to me. And a lot of tracks don't really give you a whole lot of that these days, especially the way we run them. So oftentimes we run them, in a slower configuration, or we kind of have to stop after a few laps or whatever. But the ones where I'm actually able to go out and stay out for a while are really, really fun. Although I will say, I did Sonoma for Civic Type R. And that was actually really fun because with Type R, it was less risky because I mean, yes, you do a little bit of understeer still. You got to combat, but it's not quite as sketchy as rear wheel drive at Sonoma. But that was really fun because at the end of the day, there, a lot of the other journalists had gone home. They did their few laps, and they kind of just wanted to go back and hang at the hotel or whatever. But I'm one of the journalists that if I have the time, I will just be like free track day and just stay all day and just keep on lapping until they cut us off. And that's what we did at Sonoma with the Civic Type R. It was me and David Patterson, that dude in blue. We were both there on the same wave, and me and him just were chasing each other, just over and over, just ringing out Type R's all afternoon at Sonoma, and that was a blast. Just chewing through tires and and just flogging those cars. It was a lot of fun. So Sonoma's not all bad. But that was one of the other more fun experiences. I'm trying to think of other tracks. I've been to a bunch of tracks, but it's like one of those things. The one that I didn't really cover on YouTube here. I did an Instagram reel about this because the whole deal was kind of weird. But last year I did lap Fiorano in a Ferrari 296 GTB, and I didn't just lap it like once. Like I did like a full day driving school in a Ferrari 296 GTB. That's how I got the little diecast car up there at Fiorano. And even most auto journalists don't get to lap Fiorano unless you are like elite journalism level where Ferrari invites you on media drives. And even then, it's very rare that they have you driving at their track. But yeah, I honestly, so I'd have to say that probably takes the cake as the most special track experience. And Fiorano is incredible too. A really good track. I mean, it helps that you're in a Ferrari, but like really nice long straightaway. And I really love, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Fiorano's layout, there's like a little part where you're actually driving over a little bridge. And the really fun part is it kind of drops off a little bit abruptly. It's not like you're catching air or anything, but if you can kind of go full throttle over the little hump as you get onto the bridge there, and it's just for a second, the nose gets a little light as you're like jumping over the entry point of this bridge, and it's a really fun track too. Lots of runoff, so it feels pretty safe most of the time as well. Just was so special to be at Ferrari's own test track in the 296, which is also a phenomenal car. I wish I could have done a review on it, but it was just there for the track day that we were doing, and did a skid pad thing too, which was a ton of fun there. So that's a really good one. I also really loved I was there at this point. It's been 8 years, but there's a track in Washington State. The name's evading me right now, but I actually did the FK8 Type R refresh drive there. And that's trying to think of, I can't remember what it was called. But it's near Washington or it was in the like greater Seattle area. Maybe someone can help me out with that. But anyway, that was a really fun one too. It had a really nice downhill kind of thing. The one track, my white whale, that I have never been able to get yet is Laguna Seca. I desperately want to drive Laguna Seca. And Laguna Seca, every trip that has Laguna Seca on for the media drive, I never get invited to. And it's like, someday. That was my favorite track on Gran Turismo 2 and all the Gran Turismo games back in the day, and I just so desperately want to drive the Laguna Seca. But also Lime Rock, I didn't love Lime Rock. I did that for BRZ for that media drive. Actually, Lime Rock was, at least the way we were running it, was really boring. I know a lot of people really love it. Maybe it was just a bad configuration, or it was just not suited well to the BRZ, but that was very unimpressive to me. Trying to think of any others before we move on here. I don't think I can think of any others off the top of my head. There certainly are others. There's been a lot of cool stuff I've driven on, but those are the ones that pop up in my head quickly. And Stud Muffin, thank you so much for a super chat. Says, which German automaker shined the most during the 90s in your opinion, and has that brand lost their touch? I guess if we're talking from a performance standpoint, I'd say BMW, I think, was really the best one of the 90s. When you look back at, what they were offering and, the fun marketing they did back then too. I think all those brands had some really cool stuff, obviously, but I think the M's of the 90s are really, compared to the RS's of the 90s, which also we got less of here in the States, admittedly, but, from an American's perspective, we got all the M's pretty much. And the Mercedes always were kind of a little bit less hardcore in my mind. So for me, I'd say it's the BMWs. And as far as have they lost their touch, I mean, I'd say in some ways, they've certainly lost that 90s appeal just because everything has ballooned in horsepower and weight and all that stuff. William, the Ridge, that's what it is. The Ridge is what I'm talking about. Thank you, Will, for that as far as the track in Washington State. Yeah, loved the Ridge. That was fantastic. Yeah, Ridge Motorsports Park. Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. I see Bruce or TFI also said that. But let me see. But yeah, I mean, I think, BMW, they make some really great stuff still. I loved the M2 that I reviewed, a year and a half ago. The new M2 with the manual is really great. And I've heard M3 is great with the manual. Haven't had a chance to review that. But I think they still make some really good stuff, even if, some of the other things aren't, amazing. But yeah. And thank you so much again for the super chat. And I see we are coming up on the last 5 minutes or so here. So I'm going to try just get through all the member questions and prioritize those here. And I'll go back in the last minute or two if we have some time and do the final few non-member questions. But let me see here. So Harsha says, my dad rented a 200 when they were in production. The rear headroom was terrible, and he actually preferred our old Camry compared to the 200. Interesting. I don't recall the 200 having bad headroom, but obviously that was an issue for you guys. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, it did have that sloping roof, so I know what you mean. Maybe I'm just I guess shorter than you guys are. It wasn't an issue for me, but I guess that could certainly be playing into why they didn't sell well. Interesting. And let me see. Michelle says, "How do you feel the Toyota has better NVH than Honda?" My dad feels the Toyota cabins are generally quieter than Honda, which is what kept him on Toyota when upgrading from our 2010 Highlander to the 21. Interesting. It depends on the car, but typically I'd actually say Honda's quieter pretty consistently. Like Civic is quieter than Corolla. I'd say Accord is quieter than Camry. And then as we go up to the SUVs, I'd say CRV I'd actually say is quieter than RAV4. Bigger stuff, yeah, I don't know. I think Pilot isn't super polished. Honestly, I think that's kind of one of the ones where they could have done a little bit more. But it still is really nice. And I think at that point, though, it's more of an even footing whenever you're getting up to Highlander size stuff. But I think especially smaller stuff, Honda makes them a little bit more polished, in my opinion. Let me see. Harsha says, luckily with a Tesla, most people don't know how to use the door handles. And because there's no button to start the car, it's very difficult to steal. Plus, there's a ton of cameras on these cars. Yeah, true. There's a lot of that stuff that they've done a really good job of kind of making that harder. And yeah, I mean, even I feel like sometimes I'm just walking past the Tesla and I see like the little like camera on the screen saying it's recording or something. They do a good job with the Sentry mode or whatever they call it. And Linda says, it seems that cars have become too fancy with large screens, etc., and thus the price becomes too high. What we want, in my experience, is the driving experience, not all the fancy stuff. Very true. And we've had these chats in the past in the lives here. I'd love to see myself or someone else someday be able to do a car company where you just make basic stuff and not the exotic basic, stuff like Gordon Murray, but actual like, let's make roll up windows and non-power door locks a thing again, and have a little tiny screen for the federally mandated backup camera, which maybe it won't be federally mandated anymore. We'll see what happens, but I agree with you. I wish there was more basic stuff out there, and we'll see if maybe that's something they get back to if people get more and more burned out with expensive cars, or if tariffs start to squeeze prices, maybe we will see them try and decontent more aggressively in order to compensate and keep those price points. We'll have to see. But Linda says, track days have to be so much fun. I'm not skilled enough to drive, but I'd love to be a passenger. I've never been brave enough to go over 80. And I see a TFI says to try and find autocross in your area. All you need is your car. That's true. Autocross is great. Obviously, you can still overcook it and knock over a few cones, but it's low speed. I highly recommend that. Totally agree, TFI. Autocross is a great way to get into, trying that kind of thing out. And, and the great thing, I mean, again, I haven't been in car culture in every area, but From my experience with autocross culture, especially, it's very friendly. It's very much a, hey, we're all trying to just have fun here. I mean, maybe I'm sure there's some where there's egos and annoying people, but typically it seems like it's a very welcoming way to get into motorsport, and everyone's again just there to have fun in a low stress, and it doesn't really chew through tires and brakes that badly, because it's such a short run. So I agree, that's a great recommendation, TFI. I definitely try that out. Also, it never hurts to have the education, though. There's some of these tracks will do a high performance driving day, and they meet you right where you are, and they are able to accommodate whatever skills you have and just improve them. And that makes you a safer driver, a better driver, a more confident, more comfortable driver behind the wheel. It's a great thing to do. And again, you don't have to be doing 100 miles an hour, to learn these things. They do these things at very low speeds. Some of these things, they're just fun exercises to just open up your perception of stuff. Like, I mean, even one of the things when I did the Cadillac V Performance School was we were just in a deserted parking lot, and they just cover the windshield with like a sunscreen kind of cover, and they say, okay, now you look out this side window and this side window, and use your peripherals to go through these cones and navigate a very basic course using just your peripherals. And you still have to look forward and just be like, okay, I'm looking out of this side of my head. I usually don't do this. Most drivers are looking like this in a tunnel vision. They're not opening up their vision. And it's one of those exercises that, again, you're doing it at 10 miles an hour, but it's just about opening up that vision. And that makes you a better driver once you get into the habit of doing those types of things. And so even little things like that, these driving schools, it doesn't have to be a scary, thing. It's just these little exercises that are just to, improve your confidence. And so I highly recommend driving schools for anybody. There's simple ones that are a half day. I did the one with McLaren. Even they do a free one for their owners, and that was part of a little collab I did with Project Cars 2 back in the day. But there's little half day ones. That one was actually at Sonoma as well. And then there's like the V one I did was 2 days, and there's some that are even longer than that. You can have as much or as little immersion as you want, and it's a great thing. I highly recommend. It's not cheap. That's the only thing that holds most people back. But if you want to, spoil yourself and improve your skills, it's really great. I think actually some insurance companies, I don't know if they still do it anymore, but some insurance companies used to give you discounts if you showed, hey, I graduated from an extra driving school. That sometimes, yeah, I think I heard at least it used to lower your rate a little bit, because they know, like, okay, this isn't just some random person that got a driver's license because they have a pulse. Like, this is someone who actually, is focused on their driving skills a little more. But yeah, definitely recommend. And let me see here. I see we're over the 2-hour mark, so we'll wrap it up here. Last few member questions. And so Bruce says, not to get you in trouble, but how many embargoes are you currently under? I'm not under any actually currently. I haven't been on a media drive since about a month ago, and those already came out. And I've had invites for a few events that I've actually turned down. I'm being really picky with press trips this year, and so I've looked at how these videos perform. I mean, even go and look at my 4Runner review right now. I think it's sitting at like 6,000 views. I flew all the way across the country for a video to get 6,000 views. And I think I've really done a lot of soul searching, especially in the past few weeks about this, and this new direction for this year. And I will try and not go for a long tangent on this, but I'm going to be more selective here. I think you're going to see a difference in content from me this year. I'm not going to go back to the SuperWorks fan days of reviewing everyone's modified cars, because I still want to do new car stuff primarily, along with some used, stuff that's just people are buying, not just builds, but, I'm going to do more of the used stuff for sure. But I'm like, why am I flying across the country for 6,000 views? It's, it's an awesome opportunity, and it's an amazing, fun car that I'm excited about. I mean, like the 4Runner, I jumped it. I literally got to take it off a jump. And many of you probably saw I posted that on Instagram, and I also included it in the review if you watched that, those handful of you that did. But I have these super fun experiences that I never would be able to do with a press car. But it's like, is that actually worth all that effort? 3 days of flying back and forth, waking up at 4 a.m. for a crack of the dawn flight, running myself ragged all day, doing all this stuff, running through airports, sitting around. It's a whole lot of stuff for 6,000 views when I can literally have a car roll up in my driveway with these press cars and do a video in 2 hours and get the same or more views. And, especially with a lot of this embargo stuff, since that's, talking about the embargoes, I've also kind of just realized that I can't compete with the big guys that are going out and doing these same videos on embargo day. I can't compete. And instead of trying to compete, I think I'm going to really start doing more of what Car Confections and what Joe Rady does, going to dealerships. I actually just recently made a connection with a large dealer group in Pittsburgh here, where I have access to like 20 brands now, and a ton of stuff. And instead of flying across the country for 6,000 views, I'm going to drive 20 minutes and get something that you guys haven't seen because it's not in the press fleet and because it's not, in the media, drives and all this stuff, and go for these oddball cars that I've been running to review for years. That just no one has in the fleet, or no one cares to stock, whether it's like, I want to do more base models because those are phenomenal values. I'm going to do more base models this year because I can go to a dealer and get that. I can, do some of these other oddball stuff. Like, I've been asking for a Kia K5 GT. They've been out for like a year now for this refresh version. And I can't get my hands on one, but they have one at my local dealer. And so I'm going to probably finally do like a K5 GT and all these other vehicles. I have a whole list of vehicles I've been begging for that I know are going to get good views that I can't get. And instead of waiting or just taking whatever stuff is spoon fed to me from the press fleets and from the media drives, which I'm very appreciative of, and I certainly am going to do that when it makes sense. And if it's a car that's a big deal, I will still go on the trip, but I'm doing way less of that this year. And again, just everyone's going to zig, I'm going to zag. And I think I got to quit competing and just do different cars. And that's also part of why, this little backup car that I said I'm going to be getting here in the next week here. That's also part of the motivation, is so I can say no to more press cars. Because a lot of them, if it's going to get 5,000 views, it's a waste of time. It's just, it's great. I have a free car for a week. I know that is a very privileged thing to complain about, but my time is so crunched that if I can, just go down to my local dealer and film 5 cars in the same day and do way more content for less time versus, waiting for a new press car and holding back. And also that means the last thing I'll say about embargoes is, some of these cars, these companies in the past year or so have really been slow with media drives. Like the Kia K4 media drive was in December. That car had been on sale since September. And 3 months later, they finally had the media drive. And I was just like, I'm not going to bother. I was like, it's a car that will do well once I post my video. I have one as a press vehicle a few weeks ago. That'll be going live here at the beginning of March. But like, I'm like, why would I go fly all the way to Texas for a car that's been on the market and every dealer salesman's done a walk around video on it 3 months ago? So some of these things I'll actually be able to jump the embargo and post videos before everybody, because I'm like, yeah, it's been sitting at my dealer and you guys are waiting a month to review it. I don't love that idea of jumping embargo, so I'm not going to do it very often. But if there's a car that I want to review and it's at my local dealer, why would I fly across the country for that? So those are the types of things where I'm not going to do embargoes for a lot of that stuff. Sometimes I get, some news stories that, are embargoes. So there'll be some of that, but I'm probably not going to be under very many embargoes this year, honestly. So anyway, sorry for the long tangent here, but for those of you who are still sticking around, there's the scoop on what you can expect this year, but it's going to be good, I think, because it's going to be, again, more enthusiast focused stuff. I'll still have, other mainstream stuff, but, going for those base models that no one covers, going for, more obtainable vehicles, less $100,000 EVs that no one cares about, and more $30,000 gas powered stuff. And, I can read the room, and instead of, going on these things and filming these crazy expensive things that 5 people are going to buy, like, I want to do the meat and potatoes that everyone, wants reviews on and aren't getting them from the others. So that's really my goal. I think that's why you see Car Confections and Joe Rady have grown so fast in the past 2 years. And I've talked to both of them and I said, you guys are brilliant for keeping the dealer thing going. Cause I gave up the dealer thing and I was like, well, I'm just going to, I always thought it was the next progression of like, well, as an automotive journalist, you go from the dealers and then you eventually work your way up to the press cars and then up to the media drives, and it's very glamorous and all this. And it's like, it's fun, but it's not smart from a time management standpoint for me for a lot of these anymore. So they were smart to stick with that and keep those connections and do the other stuff. And that's going to be my approach this year. Is the same exact approach as Car Confections and Joe Rady. I probably won't be able to do quite as much as they do because they are still just both machines with like daily uploads because they have editors and film, videographers and all that. I don't have that luxury. I'm a one-man crew, so I'm limited by that. But I will be doing, that same style of more dealer stuff here this year, and just really being picky with the press cars and the trips. So you'll see less of embargo stuff from me this year. I won't be there having the newest review on every new thing, that came out, but I'm okay with that. A lot of times, a lot of my reviews, when I even wait a few months and still do it, as a press car, it still gets great views, sometimes even better than a lot of these embargo videos do. So that's kind of, I'm convinced that's the right approach for me this year. So we'll see. Always trying new things and see what happens. But Linda, thank you so much for your very generous super chat. I really appreciate the $20 super chat there. Thank you so much. It's coming up as multiples on here. I'm not sure if there were in fact multiples or not, but thank you either way for your generosity. I really appreciate that, Linda. She's ending the evening on a high note because we appreciate you. Thank you so much, Linda. I appreciate you as well, and all of you who hang out here. I don't want to miss the last few member questions though, so I'm going to try and go quick, I promise. Vishal, thanks for being a member for 10 months. He says, Topher Drives did a vid recently on a base Versa manual he borrowed from a dealer. That vid has over 500,000 views. Definitely good content for you to do. I didn't see that, so thank you. That further reinforces my thoughts on that. So that's great to hear. Thank you for letting me know about that. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That is exactly. So I'm glad that I think a lot of people are piecing together like this is the stuff that makes sense. And yeah, so that's great to see. Thank you for that info. All right, last few here. Jeremy says, I'm lucky enough to live in NorCal and have driven Laguna a few times. It's really fun, but the noise limit is annoying. Okay. Lots of 90 decibel and 92 decibel days. Gotcha. That's unfortunate. Vic's asking about Nürburgring. Never been on Nürburgring before. I'd love to try it someday. It's a little intimidating, I think, but I'd love to try it even at a slower pace. And yeah, and apologies for the non-member questions I'm not able to get to here. But yeah, I'm just gonna do the last few member here. So Harsha says, honestly, more companies should offer a subscription model where you pay a fee and can use a car from a manufacturer and take them out on the track with insurance covered. That'd be nice. Yeah, it'd be cool to see subscriptions for track cars. I think maybe some tracks do some kind of track car rental. I'm not sure, but yeah, because insurance is really the biggest thing. If it's your daily driver, you're really taking a risk there, because if you put it into a wall, your insurance company is not going to cover you, at least if you're doing it the legal way and you're not trying to commit insurance fraud by lying and saying you just happened to crash and it wasn't on the track. You're really up a creek, which is why I've never actually tracked my own personal cars. I obviously don't need to because I have the luxury of going on these trips and doing it there. But yeah, it's definitely risky for sure. And that's the great thing with autocross. You don't have to worry about that really. Harsha says, I'd love to do a Nissan Versa Cup and trash these cars on the tracks with other people, or maybe even a Mitsubishi Mirage Cup. That'd be fun. It's a fun idea. As the TFI says that Canada had a Micro Cup. Now we have the Sentra Cup. That's fun. Linda says, your new direction sounds exciting. Well, thank you. I appreciate the support. And Joe's asking about my thoughts on the M340i. I did a review on it. Definitely check it out on the channel. All my thoughts are there. Let me see. Bruce says, excited for the new content. I took away some great insight from your tangents. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed them. Hopefully they're not too annoying for everyone else as well. And Linda says, Joe's videos are more straightforward. He basically talks. Yeah, and that's why he can churn them out for sure. Because I think he said it takes like an hour to edit a video versus me. I'm 8 to 12 hours for every review. So it makes it a lot easier whenever you have no B-roll basically. And it's just like, 2 shots the entire 20 or 30 minutes, and that's about it. It's nice. But Linda says, as a former teacher, he learned to be silly and entertaining. Yeah, and he's a very good presenter. I mean, Joe's a great guy. He's always so nice. One of my favorites to hang out with on press trips. It's always so great to see Joe. We send Christmas cards back and forth to each other. Like Joe is so nice. 10 out of 10. can't recommend him and his channel enough. He does great stuff. Him and Lori, they work so hard too. And Trent Car Guy says, have a good week, everyone. See you next week. Yeah, everyone says have a good week, everyone. I appreciate that, everyone. And yeah, so yeah, apologies again to the member or non-member questions I wasn't able to get to, but if you ever want to ask a question, there's always all my contact info in the description below. Always happy to chat, help you find a car you love, or just answer any questions or any thoughts you have. Always happy to see that. But anyway, hope you guys all have a great week as well here, and thank you so much for watching. Got some regular, ordinary kind of reviews coming this week, but stay tuned for, again, either this coming weekend or next or the following week here for my reveal of the new little backup car. Again, don't expect any sports cars, but new little cheap backup car coming on the channel here soon. So anyway, thank you all so much. Have a great week. Stay warm, stay healthy, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.